Chapter 13:15. Tung Tong Tian looked at Yi Qiong gloomily. He also knew that with Yi Qiong here today, it was impossible for him to snatch the snow jade sword from Yi Qianqian's hands. Why? Do you want to go out and have a fight? Yi Qiong looked at Tung Tong Tian indifferently. Tung Tong Tian struggled for a while. He wasn't afraid of Yi Qiong, but if he really chose to go out and have a fight, then he would definitely miss the last chance to spit out the divine item. No matter how he looked at it, the loss would be far greater than the value of the snow jade sword. He was very straightforward and didn't say anything harsh. He also knew that no matter how harsh words were, it was much more practical than using his fists. Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Tung Tong Tian turn around and leave. Both of them had their own trump cards and were confident that they could escape from Tung Tong Tian's hands. However, they would miss the opportunity to spit out treasures if they were to fight. However, they still made the right bet. Tung Tong Tian still valued the divine item spit out more. For this, he could temporarily put aside the grudges between him and the two. Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Qiong and couldn't help but have a good impression of him. Although he already knew of Nan Baishan's existence, it was his first time seeing him in person. From the way he talked and behaved, he didn't have the temperament that Yi Shiwen hated. Yi Qiong smiled slightly and said, "Junior's sister has come back from a great disaster. This is my first time meeting you." There were hundreds of millions of people in the Yi clan, and the blood relations between them were already very shallow. Many people's relatives had already crossed dozens of bays. Therefore, they often referred to each other as brothers and sisters. Yi Qianqian just nodded reservedly. She didn't feel any different because of Yi Qiong's help. Yi Shiwen looked at the two of them. It seemed like they knew each other a long time ago. He felt a little strange. Yi Qiong was one of the 5 tyrants of the Yi clan. He was one of the top experts in the entire Yi clan and even the entire ancient Barons continent. He was completely different from Yi Feng and the others. Even Yi Feng, Yi Shui, and the others rarely had the chance to see Yi Qiong, let alone get to know each other. What kind of person was qualified to make friends? What kind of people were qualified to mate with? Such unspoken rules had always existed. However, the more he understood Yi Qianqian, the more he realized that she had more secrets than he had imagined. Yi Qiong seemed to be aware of Yi Qianqian's cold attitude, so he didn't mind it at all. He wasn't angry at her attitude at all. Not only Yi Qiong, but the other experts of the Yi clan also looked over. When they saw Yi Qianqian's cultivation, they couldn't help but be amazed. With their cultivation, it was not difficult to see that Yi Qianqian had reached the same level as them, or even a higher level of combat power. They were all much older than Yi Qianqian. Although this junior of the younger generation was famous, her strength was actually far from theirs. They originally thought that she would need a few more years to catch up to them. Unexpectedly, Yi Qianqian had already caught up to most of them, and she was even stronger than them. Apart from the experts of the Celestial Realm who were calm, some experts of the late stage of the Celestial Realm who were half a step into the Celestial Realm couldn't stay calm. It should be known that not only was their strength outstanding, but they were also the leaders of various small organizations. Originally, they didn't care about Clear Moon Temple. Although no one was willing to provoke Clear Moon Temple, it was only because they didn't want to provoke too many people to protect them. However, it didn't mean that they couldn't do anything to Clear Moon Temple. Before, Clear Moon Temple only had 2 experts of the early stage of the Celestial Realm. For others, they might be experts, but for them, they were far from qualified. If it weren't for this, a small organization made up of only beauties wouldn't even be qualified to be compared to them. But now it was different. Yi Qianqian had also shown her tyrannical strength. Her strength was not ordinary. And with the power of the snow jade sword, Yi Qianqian's cultivation was directly above everyone else. With such a master in charge, Clear Moon Temple would definitely not just be a vase. It was enough to have a place among all the small organizations. At that time, the entire situation would usher in a big reshuffle. If Yi Qianqian had the opportunity to enter the Celestial Realm, then Clear Moon Temple would immediately become one of the small organizations in the entire Yi family that couldn't be provoked. There were countless admirers behind them, and there were even experts of the Celestial Realm in charge. Such an organization was naturally the most untouchable. Just the change in strength made everyone think a lot. But because of this, everyone seemed to have a faint intention to accept Yi Qianqian into this circle. As long as her strength was enough, it was only a matter of time before she joined this circle. As for Yi Shiwen, who cared about him, many people didn't even know Yi Shiwen, and only thought that he was a follower of Yi Qianqian. Of course, there were some people who knew that he was the champion of this year's clans competition. But so what? Most of the people here were champions of previous clans competitions. This was nothing. It could only be said to be a stepping stone to entering this circle. Only when one's strength reached a certain level would they have the chance to join them. But whether they accepted or not, Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. His goal was only the 5 hegemons, and these people weren't his goal at all. Naturally, whether they approved or not didn't matter at all. How about it, come with me? Yi Qiong said. He wasn't overbearing, but there was an unquestionable tone in his words. Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Shiwen, seemingly asking for his opinion. This made Yi Qiong a little surprised. Although Yi Qianqian was cold, she was a very assertive girl. She always knew what to do and what not to do. At this time, why did she look like she was asking for Yi Shiwen's opinion? Yi Shiwen thought about it carefully and shook his head. Although he could get the protection of many masters of the Yi family in the past, he was also restricted. Because they were all masters of the Yi family, it was impossible to rob them. If that happened, it would definitely end up with Yi Qiong dividing the divine objects. In that case, with his strength, it would be impossible to get a share. Even if he could get a share, it would be left over by everyone else, and that wasn't what Yi Shiwen wanted. Naturally, with Yi Qianqian's strength and popularity, this wouldn't be the case. But she still chose to go with Yi Shiwen. Although she didn't know Yi Shiwen's considerations, this kind of unconditional trust still made Yi Shiwen feel very touched. Seeing that Yi Qianqian didn't move, Yi Qiong looked at Yi Shiwen with a slight surprise. Then the corner of his mouth twitched, and he didn't continue to force it. He said, "In that case, you be careful." With that, Yi Qiong turned around and returned to the Yi family's team, quietly waiting for the final time when the treasure house would spit out the divine objects. As the time for the treasure house to spit out the divine objects was getting closer and closer, everyone began to focus. Everyone's attention was also on the treasure house, no longer paying attention to Yi Shiwen, as if it was just an unexpected interlude. And now it was finally time for the song to end and everyone to disperse. Wait a moment, let's join forces. Yi Shiwen transmitted to Yi Qianqian. I will attack first, and then you help me block those people. Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise. Did he mean that he would be the main force of the attack? Yi Shiwen's strength was naturally far more tyrannical than it looked, but she also knew very well that Yi Shiwen was far from being able to compete with these half-step celestial realm masters. It could even be said that Yi Shiwen was the weakest among them. Originally, this was also an indisputable matter. His realm was originally the lowest, but they just didn't know that although Yi Shiwen's realm was the lowest, his combat power was far from being as low as his realm showed. I'm fast. If we want to attack, it will be more convenient than you, Yi Shiwen said. Yi Qianqian thought about it, and it was indeed so. She couldn't help but nod. She had seen Yi Shiwen's speed before, and it was indeed extremely fast. The two of them used the secret voice-transmitting technique again to discuss the details of their next move. Yi Shiwen was well aware that his strength was the weakest in this place. In the face of those experts of the late stage of half-step celestial being realm, he could only remain undefeated at most. Not to mention that there was Tung Tongtian next to him. Once there was a chance, he believed that Tung Tongtian would definitely not let go of the opportunity to attack. At that time, Yi Qiong might not be able to help in time. Now Yi Qiong could focus on Tung Tongtian wholeheartedly, and once the treasure house began to spit out the divine objects, it would be completely impossible to be distracted. So they could only rely on themselves. However, they were not as powerful as others, so they needed to calculate more than others. Both of them were intelligent people, and they quickly specified a series of plans and simulated a series of possible problems. Suddenly, the entire sky began to shake. Rumble! The sound began to spread into everyone's ears. No matter which clan the masters, at this time, when they heard this sound, they couldn't help but be excited. Everyone knew that this treasure house was finally entering the final stage, spitting out the divine objects, and it was also the final feast of the entire treasure house. It was also an opportunity that everyone had been waiting for a long time. Rumble! The entire treasure house began to shake violently, and it even caused the entire world to begin to shake violently. In the entire treasure house, a seven-colored light condensed from the treasures began to illuminate the entire world. In an instant, the treasures in the entire world began to condense. Boom! A group of light wrapped an object directly ejected from the treasure house. The treasure house spat out the divine objects. Chapter 13:16. A divine object wrapped in a ray of light was spat out from the treasury. Tai pure gold. Some sharp-eyed people immediately recognized what this divine object was. Immediately, many people became excited. Although Draco First Gold Essence was not a magic treasure, nor was it a secret martial art manual, it was still one of the materials needed to refine a heaven-grade magic treasure. Not everyone could obtain a heavenly rank magic weapon. Moreover, even if one or two heavenly rank magic weapons were obtained, it wouldn't be of much use. Besides weapons, there were also various kinds of defensive magic tools. This kind of requirement was very high. Therefore, the best way was to refine it by oneself. At this time, the collection of various materials had become an unavoidable problem. Moreover, Draco Gold Essence was one of the most famous materials for refining magic tools. Whoosh! A big hand grabbed out from the air and directly grabbed the Tai Pure Gold. Unexpectedly, a Celestial Realm Master directly made a move. Even a Celestial Realm Master could not resist the temptation of the Tai Pure Gold and directly made a move. Immediately, the whole sky was shaking violently. That grab was like trying to grab the stars and the moon. On the spot, the stars were about to explode. "This is mine!" Another loud shout was heard. A big hand directly rose up. Another Celestial Realm Master directly made a move and joined the fight. As this Celestial Realm Master joined the fight, several Celestial Realm Masters began to join the fight. Boom! 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 The few Celestial Realm Masters in the sky were fighting, and no one was willing to give way to the other. Except for these Celestial Realm Masters, the others were very calm. They all knew very well that this was just the beginning. Although the divine objects spat out from the treasury could not reach the level of one for each person, it was definitely far more than what everyone expected. It was not necessary to go up and fight to the death now, especially for those half-step Celestial Realm Masters. Wouldn't it be a dead end if they rushed up at this time? They would not do such a stupid thing. Don't fight for it now. This is just an appetizer. Yi Qianqian transmitted her voice to Yi Shiwen. It was obvious that her investigation in this aspect was far more detailed than the information that Yi Shiwen had obtained from Yi Xing. Right now, these few divine objects that are being spat out are all heaven-tier elites dishes. We have no possibility of snatching them at all. When the treasury starts to spit out a large number of divine objects, that will be the time for us to make our move. When the time comes, we also have to be careful of Tung Tongtian's sneak attack. Yi Shiwen also reminded. Although he still couldn't let go of the temptation of the treasure house and had come here, but he hadn't reached the point where he would be blinded by greed. If he really reached that point, then he would have no choice but to die if the heavens wanted him dead. As the saying goes, if the heavens want someone to die, they must first make him crazy. It wouldn't be worth it if he had to give up his life just to fight for these divine objects. And Yi Qianqian nodded. The snow jade sword in her body also faintly issued a crisp sword cry. It directly formed an ice armor on the surface of her body. Yi Qianqian had already entered an all-out state. She could make her move at any time. She looked at the surrounding people. None of them were idle. Although they hadn't made a move, each and every one of their auras was boiling. They had raised their state to the peak. They could make their move at any time. The observing person scripture in Yi Shiwen's body was also operating to the extreme. He stood with his hands behind his back. They had already clenched into fists. He was ready to make his move at any time. The competition between experts could happen in a split second, so one must be prepared at all times. While Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian were still communicating, the outcome of the battle for the Tai Yi gold in the sky had already been decided. The Tai Yi gold had fallen completely into the hands of a middle-aged expert. Although he had obtained the Tai Yi gold, he wasn't much better off. He was also quite embarrassed under the siege of everyone. After putting the Tai Yi gold into his pocket, he immediately sat cross-legged in the void and began to recover. He wanted to heal his injuries before the real wave of divine objects came. Several other experts who hadn't competed for it also began to heal. They hadn't competed for it now, but it didn't mean that they wouldn't be able to compete for it later. In the face of the temptation of the Tai Yi gold, neither Tung Tontian nor Yi Qiong were tempted. They didn't even bat an eyelid. Aside from those two, Yi Shiwen noticed that there were two others who were worth paying attention to from the 100 Races Alliance and the Demon Race. The 100 Races Alliance's champion appeared to be middle-aged and wore a royal robe. His bearing was extraordinary, and he had the bearing of a sovereign overlooking the world. As for the expert from the Demon Race, he looked completely indifferent. Yi Shiwen didn't know what kind of demonic beast he was. He was as cold as an iceberg. There wasn't a single person within a radius of 1 mile from where he stood. Even the experts from the Demon Race were unwilling to get close to this person. Just getting close to him made them feel like they were frozen. They even had the illusion that they would be killed by this person if they didn't agree. Qianqian, do you know who those two experts from the 100 Clan Alliance and the Demon Race are? Asked Yi Shiwen. Yi Qianqian didn't deliberately look at those two, but she knew that Yi Shiwen was asking about them. That was because those two were too outstanding. They were far above the others. Compared to Tung Tontian, Yi Qiong, and the other three, they were like 4 cranes in a flock of chickens. It was just like the scene of the 4 clans contending for hegemony in the entire ancient Barrens continent. Each clan occupied a corner and fought against each other. This time, the Wang clan didn't send 2 powerful experts. Although there were many experts, and there was no lack of Celestial Realm experts, compared to Yi Qiong, they were almost instantly outclassed. These 4 people were like a huge light source, attracting everyone's attention. If one closed their eyes, they could even feel the light and heat from these 4 people. That expert from the 100 Clan Alliance is called Hao Lianjuan. He's also a famous young expert from the 10 royal clans of the 100 Clan Alliance. He's been famous for hundreds of years. He entered the Celestial Realm a long time ago, and his current cultivation is even more unfathomable. His position in the Hao Lianjuan clan is a bit like our Yi clan's 5 hegemons. His status is high, and his means are high. In the 100 Clan Alliance, he has already held a real position and is in charge of a region's affairs. Yi Qianqian explained. In the entire 100 Clan Alliance, there was also an organization similar to the royal court. It was called the Elder Council. All the leaders of the 100 Clan Alliance were elders in the council, and the 10 royal clans' patriarchs were the 10 supreme elders. They had a special position in the 100 Clan Alliance. Different from the various tyrants in the human race, where the royal court was only the strongest tyrant and could not really command the human race's affairs, the Elder Council in the 100 Clan Alliance was the true authority in the 100 Clan Alliance. It ruled over the various matters of the 100 Clan Alliance. Under the Elder Council, there were organizations with real power. Those who could hold positions in them were often people with real power in the 100 Clan Alliance. To think that Hao Lianjuan could hold such a position, and judging from Yi Qianqian's expression, it should not be an unreliable position. Hao Lianjuan's ability and influence were obvious to all. The other demon genius is called Bing Wuji, and he's a very rare one among the demon race. It is said that his true form was an iceberg that would not melt for 1,000,000 years, and he turned into a demon by chance. You know, an iceberg that would not melt for 1,000,000 years is a rare divine object, and it's almost impossible for such a divine object to turn into a demon. Once he does, he would undoubtedly be a peerless talent. Yi Qianqian said. That's why he's highly valued by many of the demon race's bigwigs, even though he doesn't have a mother. Add to that his innate talent, and he's very famous among the young elites of the demon race. Yi Shiwen was a little speechless. Both of these people had powerful backgrounds, especially Bing Wuji. He didn't know what kind of place was needed to nurture an iceberg that hadn't melted for 1,000,000 years. Moreover, he had even managed to awaken and transform this iceberg that hadn't melted for 1,000,000 years. This could only be described as a miracle of nature. It was simply not a miracle that anyone could achieve. Moreover, it was very difficult for this kind of natural divine object to truly develop spiritual intelligence. Among the many demon races, the grass and wood spirits were the rarest because they were born without intelligence. However, once they transformed, they were often the best. Just as Yi Qianqian was introducing Yi Shiwen, the treasure vault spat out a few more divine objects, which immediately caused more celestial realm masters to fight over them. Many of the masters who were originally ready to make a move could not help but take action at this time. Meanwhile, those half-step celestial realm masters had yet to make a move and were still holding back. They all knew that now was not the time for them to make a move. If they rushed in now, they would only be beaten to death by these celestial realm masters who were fighting over the treasures, and there would be no other ending. Not to mention them, even the celestial realm masters were quite embarrassed when fighting over these divine objects. A few celestial realm masters who were obviously weaker were almost killed and sent flying. Those celestial realm masters did not have the slightest mercy or sympathy, because they all knew that these people were also the most direct competitors in the fight later. Now that one was gone, it would be much easier for them to fight later. Boom! 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 The whole world was shaking crazily. Not only was the treasure vault shaking, but also the movement of these celestial realm masters fighting. As time passed, the treasure vault continued to spit out more and more divine objects. At first, it was only spitting out 1 or 2 at a time, but slowly, it would spit out more than a dozen at a time. The whole fight over the divine objects had also entered a climax. Chapter 13:17. Originally, it was just a few celestial realm masters fighting over it. Now, as more and more divine objects were spat out, even many celestial realm masters who were originally very calm began to enter the fierce competition. There were traces of celestial realm masters fighting everywhere. Boom! 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 It did not take long before many experts of the half-step sky human realm joined in the fierce competition. Due to the increasing number of divine objects being spat out, many divine objects began to slip through the hands of the sky human realm experts. At that moment, these experts of the half-step sky human realm entered a state of madness and began to compete fiercely for the divine objects. Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian were at the back of the team, waiting quietly, like a beast waiting for its prey, patiently waiting. Suddenly, a stream of light was spat out from the treasure vault. Many celestial realm masters who were caught in the competition for the divine objects were unable to intercept this stream of light in time. And at this time, several half-step celestial realm masters with sharp eyes and quick hands rushed out. And at this time, Yi Shiwen was like a cheetah. His body instantly shot out, almost tearing the vast sky in an instant, instantly passing through the layers of encirclement, instantly appearing in front of this stream of light, instantly grabbing this divine object in his hand. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast, like a golden lightning, instantly snatching the divine object, so that those half-step celestial realm masters in the late stage did not even have time to react. They only had time to make a move, and before they could catch the divine object, it was already snatched away by Yi Shiwen. Everyone was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. A kid at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm actually snatched the divine object from their hands. This was simply a great shame. Deep down, they had never really taken Yi Shiwen seriously. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen was simply a bystander or a follower of Yi Qianqian. Therefore, their attention was focused on Yi Qianqian from the beginning. When the divine object flew over, they were still paying attention to Yi Qianqian. After all, Yi Qianqian's strength was indeed very tyrannical, enough to pose a fatal threat to them. Seeing that Yi Qianqian had been standing still, they relaxed, but they didn't want to eat Yi Shiwen's loss. Yi Qianqian didn't make a move, but Yi Shiwen made a move. In the end, the divine object that they had been yearning for a long time actually fell into Yi Shiwen's hands. This was simply a slap in the face. Moreover, it was a blatant slap in the face, a slap in the face when they weren't paying attention. Kid, I think you're courting death. At this time, a sea race expert in the late stage of half-step celestial realm suddenly became angry and instantly attacked Yi Shiwen. Endless waves were generated out of thin air. His skill was so profound that even the mountains would collapse in an instant. In a flash, a huge water prison was formed and firmly surrounded Yi Shiwen. The area where Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian, where it was mainly where some individual cultivators stayed. Experts from the human clan, the Hunter Clan Alliance, the Sea Race, and the Demon Race all appeared in this area, so it was almost a chaotic scene, compared to other places where there was competition, but the scene was still considered orderly. In contrast, this place was the most disorderly place, and also the place where the competition was the most intense. Similarly, this was also the place where the casualties were the most intense, because there was no one who could suppress the situation, which meant that there was no order, and no order was often the most terrifying thing. Therefore, these people also had the least scruples when they made their moves, because they were all individual cultivators, unlike other places where there were a lot of famous sects, where they had to be somewhat scrupulous when making their moves. Go to hell! That sea race expert suddenly clenched his big hand, and countless waves instantly tightened, as if they were going to grab Yi Shiwen and crush him on the spot. A somewhat ferocious and proud smile appeared on his face. He was still the first to react. Now this arrogant kid was going to die in his hands, and the divine object that he had snatched would also fall into his hands. Boom! There was a huge explosion, and the seawater instantly burst open, splashing everywhere. But there was no scene of blood splashing everywhere, as everyone imagined. It should have been splashing everywhere, but there was no trace of blood. The ferocious smile on that sea race expert's face suddenly froze. How is this possible? He was very clear that just now he did not hold back at all, and definitely attacked with all his strength. Even if a master of half-step late-stage celestial realm was grabbed by him head-on, he should be seriously injured, but how could there be no trace of blood? Even if he was caught and turned into ashes, it should not be like this. The splashes dispersed, and they saw Yi Shiwen rushing out of the countless splashes. That grab just now did not do anything to him at all. Damn it! That sea race expert saw this scene, and suddenly became furious because he never thought that there would be such a scene. Yi Shiwen was actually not injured at all. This was simply a slap in the face, more serious than the slap in the face just now. He was a master of half-step late-stage celestial realm, only a little distance away from the real celestial realm, but now he actually could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. It was absolutely a great shame. And at this time, those half-step celestial realm masters who had not yet reacted before also roared and rushed toward Yi Shiwen. A warrior at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm actually dared to be presumptuous in front of these people. If this was not courting death, then what was? Boom! 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 A terrifying torrent of martial arts turned into a group of energy torrents, piercing through the sky, and all of them blasted down toward Yi Shiwen, wanting to instantly blast him into pieces. And at this time, a cold sword chi swept over in an instant, and the entire air in the sky froze. Those energy torrents were all frozen by the cold sword chi, and then immediately annihilated by the sword chi. The snow jade sword showed its power. Yi Qianqian, who had been attracting everyone's attention without any signs of making a move, finally made a move, completely breaking everyone's attack with one move. Yi Shiwen also took the opportunity to completely escape from everyone's attack range. Yi Shiwen pinched the flowing light on the divine object, revealing the original appearance of this divine object. This was actually a lotus snow white, as if it was carved out of ice crystals. About the size of a palm, it slowly rotated in Yi Shiwen's hand, as if it was blooming on Yi Shiwen's palm. It was really beautiful. It's the polar ice lotus. This is a good thing. It is said that this is one of the best divine objects for warriors who practice ice attribute martial arts. Swallowing it, not only can the body be transformed into the legendary physique, but from then on, the cultivation of ice attribute martial arts will also be improved by leaps and bounds. Most importantly, the energy contained in it Even if it is not used to transform the body, swallowing it on the spot can also make a huge improvement in cultivation. Everyone's eyes were completely fixed on the polar ice lotus, revealing a look of greed in their eyes, especially a few sea race experts who practiced ice attribute martial arts. When they saw the polar ice lotus, they could not take their eyes off it. For them, if they could swallow the polar ice lotus, then naturally there was no need to mention the benefits. Even breaking into the celestial realm would be a lot easier. Those with the legendary physique, wanting to break into the celestial realm would be much easier than ordinary people. This was almost innate, and the polar ice lotus could transform a person's physical body into that special physique, especially for experts who practiced ice attribute martial arts like them. This was undoubtedly the highest grade of divine items. Even those who did not practice ice attribute martial arts, at this time, were looking at the ice lotus in Yi Shiwen's hand greedily. Even if they did not cultivate ice attribute martial arts, it was not too late to change now. With the deep martial arts foundation they had laid down, coupled with their special physiques, it would be very easy for them to cultivate again. Moreover, even if they did not use it, if they could obtain it and sell it, it would definitely be an astronomical figure. Yi Qianqian, are you going to stop us? At this time, a group of more than a dozen half-step celestial realm experts all surrounded Yi Qianqian aggressively, surrounding her to demand the polar ice lotus. As for Yi Shiwen, he was completely ignored by them. So what if I am? Yi Qianqian said indifferently, without the slightest change in her expression, as if there was no one in front of her at all. Yi Qianqian's attitude completely enraged these experts. They were all half-step celestial realm late-stage experts. Even in the ancient Barons continent, they were considered powerful figures. Yi Shiwen's attitude completely enraged them. He was just a junior who had recently risen to fame, yet he dared to challenge so many of them alone. Let's go together. Let's go together. How can she be a match for so many of us? She is a genius of the Yi family. She must have had many fortuitous encounters. Let's just kill her. In this case, all the fortuitous encounters she has had and the things she has obtained will also belong to us. At this time, the sea race expert urged. If it was only Yi Shiwen, he would not care. However, this Yi Qianqian had an aura that even he was afraid of, so he had no choice but to drag everyone along. Many people also guessed the thoughts of this sea race expert, but they did not expose him, because there was no need at all. They also had the same thoughts as this sea race expert, which was to kill Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian first. As for how much they could obtain, it all depended on who was stronger in the end. Boom! After the sea race expert finished speaking, he took the lead and instantly attacked. Countless waves swept up, turning into 18 types of weapons, and directly smashed towards Yi Qianqian. Chapter 13:18. At this moment, it was as if time had stopped between the heavens and the earth. In an instant, this wave turned into a force that shook the heavens and the earth, sweeping towards Yi Qianqian. The sky cracked under the beating of these waves. The sky was collapsing, and the spiritual energy was dissipating. It was extremely terrifying. However, in Yi Qianqian's eyes, there was not the slightest fluctuation. Although this Sea Clan expert was powerful, he was not as powerful as Tung Tongtian's spirit. For Yi Qianqian at that time, he was no match for her, let alone now. In more than a year, Yi Qianqian had undergone earth-shaking changes. There was no change in her realm, but her combat power had improved by leaps and bounds. At this moment, Yi Qianqian's body instantly burst out an endless aura of ice and snow. An unparalleled aura spread out, and the entire sky was frozen in an instant. The waves that had turned into 18 kinds of weapons were also frozen in an instant. A force that no one understood swept out from her body, and the world seemed to be trampled by this fierce aura. Whoosh! A snow-white sword chi instantly cut through the sky, instantly shattering the frozen waves on the spot, and then directly bombarded the body of the Sea Clan expert. Boom! The Sea Clan expert was directly frozen, and then another sword light directly slashed down. Bang! His whole body was cut into ice crystals on the spot. A top expert of the late stage of half-step celestial realm died in the hands of Yi Qianqian, which shocked everyone in an instant. Everyone looked at Yi Qianqian and flinched. The death of the Sea Clan expert just now was a wake-up call for them. If they did not know how to restrain themselves, it was likely that they would follow in the footsteps of the Sea Clan expert and be killed by Yi Shiwen's sword. Their eyes were also full of horror, and they could not believe that this junior who had risen to fame in recent years was actually so powerful. That Sea Clan expert was not considered weak among them. If they wanted to determine a winner between them, who knew how many days it would take? Now, in the hands of Yi Qianqian, he could not even withstand one move and was completely killed. This junior was really a bit too fierce. Although the polar ice lotus was good, it was not as important as life. Moreover, it seemed that even if they besieged him, they might not be able to defeat him. And most importantly, even if they besieged him, someone must be at the forefront. But the problem was, who was willing to do so? Who was willing to be at the forefront and be killed by Yi Qianqian? These people were all smart people, and none of them were fools who were willing to be cannon fodder for others. They could only resentfully look at the polar ice lotus in Yi Shiwen's hand, and then angrily look in the direction of the treasure house. The most important thing was to seize those divine objects. At this time, as time passed, the frequency of divine objects being spat out from the treasure house gradually increased. Sometimes dozens of divine objects were spat out in one breath, and many people simply did not have enough time to intercept them, because many people were still fighting over the divine objects that had been spat out from the previous time, or even the time before that. At this time, they simply could not spare a hand. Therefore, although many people were still fighting over a divine object, many divine objects were leaked out in this situation. In short, as long as one was willing to take action, there were still many opportunities. No one wanted to waste their time arguing with Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian. Seeing that everyone had left, Yi Qianqian turned her head and faintly smiled at Yi Shiwen. Her beauty could cause the downfall of a state, and she could defeat Mo Cho. This polar ice lotus is for you, Yi Shiwen said to Yi Qianqian. With your physique, if you digest this polar ice lotus, you will reach a higher level, and by then, your cultivation speed will also greatly increase. Yi Shiwen was a little curious. The current Yi Qianqian's cultivation speed was already so fast. If she reached a higher level, would her cultivation speed really reach a shocking level? Of course, he could also keep this polar ice lotus for himself. For his tyrant body, no matter what kind of energy it was, it would eventually be transformed in a tyrant body, more or less a waste. Yi Qianqian nodded and took the polar ice lotus, without a trace of pretentiousness. More and more divine objects were spat out from the treasure house. Whether it was celestial realm experts or half-step celestial realm experts, they had already fallen into a frenzy and entered into a crazy competition. Many divine objects could only helplessly slip away. Because they were still in the midst of the competition, they simply could not care about these divine objects that flew away. Yi Qianqian also waved the snow jade sword and killed her way into the ranks of the people fighting for the divine objects. Yi Qianqian's own strength was already enough to dominate the half-step celestial realm experts. Not to mention, with the addition of the snow jade sword, she was almost invincible. Wherever she went, the half-step celestial realm experts directly collapsed and could only helplessly watch Yi Qianqian take the divine objects into her hands. Yi Shiwen did not join the ranks of those who were fighting for the divine objects. Instead, he guarded the periphery. Once a divine object was exposed from the inside, he would immediately take action and seize it. It was a piece of cake for him. While others were still fighting desperately to seize the divine objects, he had already seized more than a dozen divine objects with ease, such as Yin and Yang Fish Dew, innate fire spirit stone, and so on, many very rare divine objects, and even many people had never heard of in their lives, now all fell into Yi Shiwen's hands. Although the divine objects that leaked out from inside were not too many compared to the total number, because after all, they had to go through layers of screening, but just by catching these fish that slipped through the net, Yi Shiwen had already obtained more than many celestial realm experts. Suddenly, he could not help but be overjoyed. The greatest value of these divine objects was not that they were priceless. The greatest value lay in their own rarity. Many things might be placed in a corner on ordinary days, and no one would care about it, but once it was really needed, it was hard to buy even with 1,000 gold coins. However, there was still some regret in his heart because he could only pick up the divine objects outside. What kind of divine objects he could pick up completely depended on what leaked out from inside, and some of them were not really what Yishuan needed. If he now had the strength of Yi Qiong, Tung Tong Tian, and the others, then everything would be very simple. He could grab whatever he wanted, and there was no need to worry so much at all. This was the most regrettable part. Now his strength was undoubtedly the lowest among these people, and he only had the strength to protect himself. Rumble! The entire sky was still shaking violently, and the treasure house's spitting of divine objects had also reached the climax. One spit could spit out hundreds of divine objects, which suddenly made these warriors even more crazy. There were fierce battles everywhere, and even celestial realm experts died tragically on the spot if they were not careful. They were killed directly on the spot by others who were in a killing frenzy, and there was no other way. These people had been confused by the divine objects, and at this time, anyone who stood in front of them might be killed on the spot. On the contrary, Yishuan had gained a lot of benefits. In the blink of an eye, he had actually obtained hundreds of divine objects. Originally, these divine objects should have been leaked out. Every time the treasure house opened, there would be people who would obtain divine objects. This was originally the case, but now they were all intercepted by Yishuan. There were all kinds of refining materials, alchemy materials, and even magic weapons were directly intercepted by Yishuan. And there were also magic pills that fell into Yishuan's hands. Although the number was not much, only hundreds in terms of value, it made Yishuan rich overnight in an instant. It could even be said that any one of them could be sold by Yishuan for billions of spirit crystals. Of course, these were divine objects that were rarely seen on ordinary days. Even if they were to be sold, at most one or two of them would be sold, and it was impossible to sell all of them. Therefore, the real value of these divine objects was still in the future, not now, and it was impossible to immediately turn them into spirit crystals. But even so, Yishuan was still very satisfied. Previously, everyone was frantically competing for the divine objects that were spat out, and no time to pay attention to Yishuan who was at the outermost. But slowly, the frequency of the treasure house spitting out divine objects decreased, and it was obvious that it had entered the final stage. At this time, some people began to pay attention to Yishuan's hands. Although many people could not spare their hands to deal with Yishuan just now, it was enough to just pay attention to Yishuan. Seeing that Yishuan had collected hundreds of divine objects at this time, their eyes instantly turned red at this time. That was over 100 divine objects. They had fought with their lives on the line, yet each of them had only managed to obtain 2 or 3 divine objects. Not to mention, many of them had not even managed to obtain a single divine object. Some of them had even been injured at the very beginning. It was simply a miserable life. And this kid, who was originally regarded as a bystander, actually intercepted hundreds of divine objects at the back. This was simply a living treasure house. Uncle could bear it, but Aunt couldn't bear it. In the eyes of many people, Yishuan was simply intercepting the divine objects that should have belonged to them, but they completely forgot that if Yishuan did not intercept them outside, these divine objects would also fly to various places in the treasure house world, and they would not fall into their hands at all. Of course, at this time, they did not think so much, or rather, they did not want to think so much. At this time, only the hundreds of divine objects in Yishuan's hands were in their eyes. Even Yi Qianqian looked at Yishuan with some surprise. She did not expect him to be able to intercept so many divine objects outside. Even she, who went on a killing spree, finally only snatched 20 divine objects, which was almost the same as the ordinary Celestial Realm Masters. This had already made her the top among the half-step Celestial Realm Masters. But Yishuan was even more exaggerated. He had intercepted hundreds of divine objects, making him suddenly a bright light in the dark night in everyone's eyes. At this time, a deep and cold voice came. "Kid, is it fun to intercept us outside?" Chapter 1319. Kid, is it fun to steal our loot out there? A deep, cold voice was heard. A figure appeared in front of Yi Shiwen almost instantaneously along with that cold voice, not giving Yi Shiwen any chance to catch his breath at all. A big, rough hand grabbed at Yi Shiwen. Rip! The big hand seemed to tear the air apart, making an ear-piercing and unpleasant sound as it came crashing down at Yi Shiwen. Although he was ambushed, Yi Shiwen had always maintained 120% vigilance in such a place. Almost immediately, he pushed off with the tip of his foot, and his figure shot backward like a cannonball, shattering the void with his step. Boom! Yi Shiwen's figure had just left that area when he saw that the big hand had already crushed the area, and the scene of the void being crushed was extremely horrifying. It was only then that Yi Shiwen saw the person who had come. It was a middle-aged fighter from the 100 Races Alliance, with a pale face and a pair of slender eyes that were filled with coldness. His hands were like those of an eagle, and he did not look human. He was also a half-step celestial realm fighter from the 100 Races Alliance. Who are you? Yi Shiwen barked coldly. Why do you care who I am? You'd better hand over all your wealth, and you'll still be able to leave alive today. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. The fighter from the 100 Races Alliance said coldly. I obtained all of this myself. Why should I hand it over to you? Yi Shiwen said with a cold expression. Since you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then die. The fighter from the 100 Races Alliance pounced at Yi Shiwen at once. His whole person leaped into the air, and he came right at Yi Shiwen like a sharp arrow, tearing the sky apart. He was fast and urgent, as if he was going to tear apart anyone who stood in his way. Yi Shiwen spread his hands, and an ancient cauldron appeared in front of him. Bang! The fighter from the 100 Races Alliance blasted his claw on the ancient cauldron, and the ancient cauldron was crushed into a wave of air. Another claw came at Yi Shiwen at lightning speed, and there was a look of embarrassment and annoyance on his face. To him, it was already a bit embarrassing that he could not kill Yi Shiwen with a single claw. Bang! 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 In no time at all, Yi Shiwen had exchanged over 100 blows with the elite of the 100 Races Alliance, retreating as he fought, appearing to be at a complete disadvantage. However, what left everyone dumbfounded was the fact that while Yi Shiwen appeared to be at a complete disadvantage, he did not show any signs of losing at all, as if he would be able to completely withstand any sort of storm of attacks. Many of the warriors around them were left rather speechless. The 100 Races Alliance was not the only one who had their eyes on the hundreds of divine objects in Yi Shiwen's hands. Many other experts were coveting the divine objects in Yi Shiwen's hands as well, with even celestial realm experts feeling envious. They didn't have as many divine objects as Yi Shiwen. Originally, everyone thought that this kid was courting death. As the saying goes, an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Everyone understood that what he was doing was equivalent to a child carrying a large piece of gold and walking on the road. Wasn't this inviting people to rob him? Unexpectedly, this child looked small, but he knew martial arts. He was not as easy to deal with as ordinary people thought. This kid from the Yi clan is so powerful. He's only at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm, and yet he can fight until now. No wonder he dares to come here. But no matter how powerful he is, it's useless. He snatched over 100 divine objects. This is the saying that an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. He's simply courting death. Damn it! The face of the 100 Races Alliance elite had turned into rage out of humiliation. No matter how fierce his attacks were, Yi Shiwen always seemed to be able to parry them with ease, as if there was no limit to his attacks, which was a provocation to his pride. Die! He shouted again. His eagle-like claws suddenly slashed down, tearing through the sky. His claws tore through the sky. His claws tore through the sky. It was like a monstrous giant claw. It seemed like it wanted to tear the sky apart and form a huge buckle character. An unparalleled pillar of air instantly blasted down. Yi Shiwen's expression turned solemn when he saw that giant claw tearing through the sky. The 8 Treasures cosmic cauldron instantly appeared above his head. It was no longer condensed from spiritual ether, but the real 8 Treasures cosmic cauldron. Clang! The giant claw once again clawed at the 8 treasures cosmic cauldron, but this time, it did not explode like before. Instead, the giant claw was directly bounced off. Yi Shiwen's body just shook slightly, and he stabilized himself. The elite of the 100 Races Alliance took a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. A trace of horror flashed in his eyes. What kind of power tool was this? What kind of power tool is this? It's so powerful. I'm afraid it's another heaven-grade power tool. This kid is really lucky. He's just a kid at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm, but he has so many good things. It seems that he had a lot of fortuitous encounters, and he's also a genius. If we can rob him of his wealth, we'll be rich. It's not just that. This ancient cauldron is very impressive. It's like holding it on your head, and you'll be in an invincible position. With his cultivation at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm, he can actually completely block the cultivation of a half-step celestial realm. This ancient cauldron is definitely not trivial. The people around were discussing. After revealing the 8 treasures cosmic cauldron, not only did it not dispel their thoughts, but it made them even more crazy. At this time, they did not make a move, not because they did not want to, but because they were waiting for the right time to make a move. Yi Shiwen also understood the saying that an innocent man's wealth would become his ruin. Therefore, if it was not a last resort, he did not want to use the emergence immortal exterminating saber. This was still too extravagant for his current cultivation. However, he also knew very well that there was more than one person who was eyeing him covetously. He seemed to have a lot of wealth on him, but his strength was the weakest. Therefore, he had only one way now, and that was to establish his might and completely scare these people. Otherwise, he could only flee. Thinking of this, he did not hesitate at all. The moment he sent the 100 Clan Alliance expert flying, he instantly made a move. His figure flickered like a cannonball. He came in front of the 100 Clan Alliance expert. Imprisoning the heavens, he pointed out with his finger, and it seemed that the entire air instantly stagnated. In the eyes of the 100 Clan Alliance expert, it seemed that even the entire world had turned into a huge cage, imprisoning him within. The power of a heaven-level, top-level martial art was not trivial. If it were not for Yi Shiwen's poor cultivation and the fact that he had not practiced the imprisoning the heavens to the extreme, the imprisoning the heavens alone could completely imprison him, and he would not be able to move for the rest of his life. The 100 Clan Alliance expert had just stood firm when he saw Yi Shiwen pointing at him. He was instantly furious. In his opinion, this was a complete humiliation to him. A little kid at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm dared to launch a counterattack. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Suddenly, there was a loud roar, and the boundless spiritual ether around him began to boil. It turned into a huge divine eagle in the sky and flew into the sky. In an instant, the entire heaven prison cage was shaken. Boom! The huge divine eagle let out a deafening cry, and its claws crushed the finger that Yi Shiwen had pointed out. The entire cage that had frozen the entire sky instantly disappeared. Kid, it looks like you have quite a lot of secrets on you, the 100 Clan Alliance experts said coldly. Just as well, I won't even need to search your soul to retrieve all your memories. When that happens, they'll all be mine. What wishful thinking, Yi Shiwen sneered, his face expressionless and without the slightest change. The imprisoning the heavens had been broken, but his spirit was not shaken at all. Although the finger had only imprisoned him for a moment, it was enough for him. Usually, an instant was enough to decide the outcome of a battle between experts. One of his hands spread out from behind his back, and a yuan qi bomb had already taken shape in his palm. It grew larger and larger, and the treasure aura and spiritual aura around it were instantly sucked in, forming a super vortex with the yuan qi bomb as its core. The 100 Clan Alliance expert's expression changed drastically as he watched the yuan qi bomb grow larger and larger, and he secretly cursed. How could he not understand that Yi Shiwen was just stalling for time just now? The yuan qi bomb was emitting waves of spiritual aura that made even his heart palpitate, like circles of ripples sweeping out in all directions. Go to hell! Yi Shiwen shouted, and the Yuan Chi bomb in his hand was instantly thrown out. Whoosh! The Yuan Chi bomb turned into a huge energy beam and shot out in an instant, tearing through the sky. Everywhere it passed, countless vacuum collapsed, and the scene was extraordinarily spectacular. Even space was distorted wildly, forming spirals that were driven by the Yuan Chi bomb. He watched as the vacuum in front of him shattered piece by piece like a broken mirror, breaking apart and turning into powder. How could he not know how terrifying that Yuan Chi bomb was? Even if he were to go all out, he would probably only be able to do something like that. A pair of real ether wings instantly unfurled behind him, intending to break away from the Yuan Chi bomb's trajectory. However, the air stirred up by the Yuan Chi bomb's waves was like a solid wall of air, sealing him off from all directions, leaving him unable to advance or retreat. There was not enough time for him to break free, and the Yuan Chi bomb was already upon him. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud rose in response. Chapter 1320. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. That elite of the 100 Races Alliance was hit by the Yuan Chi bullet on the spot, and his entire being was annihilated in the air currents of the explosion. "How dare you hurt me?" Accompanied by a deafening roar, a tyrannical voice tore through the air currents and came crashing down on Yi Shiwen with the force of Mount Tai. Boom! That huge hand slapped down on Yi Shiwen's body. While the 8 treasure heaven and earth cauldron appeared in time to protect Yi Shiwen, his entire being was still slapped to the ground like a cannonball. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen's body was sent flying so quickly that there was a sharp piercing sound that pierced the eardrums of those around him. Boom! His body blasted directly into the ground, like a long spear, directly inserted into the ground, splitting it into pieces. Yi Shiwen's impact created a huge crater in a radius of 1,000 meters, with cracks spreading out in all directions with his body as the center. Everything happened too quickly. While it might seem like a long time, it was actually just a blink of an eye. From the moment that elite of the 100 Races Alliance, who was half a step in a celestial realm, made his move to when Yi Shiwen was sent flying to the ground, only a split second had passed. It was only then that everyone finally saw that master thought elite of the 100 Races Alliance who had rushed out of the turbulence. At that moment, there was no trace of the awe-inspiring aura he had before, and he looked extremely miserable. There were bloodstains all over his body. His chest had been directly hit by the Yuan Chi bullet, and it looked like several of his ribs were broken. His clothes were completely torn, and he was dripping with blood. He looked as if he had been fished out of a pool of blood. At that moment, his expression was one of extreme rage, having been completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen. In comparison, Yi Shiwen was not much better off. The ground beneath his feet had completely cracked and turned into sand. After that hateful blow, he was already bleeding from every orifice on his body, and his entire body was dark red. That was because all the pores on his body had been shattered, and it was still like that even with Yi Shiwen's entire body. One could only imagine how terrifying that blow had been. If it had been anyone else, they would have been killed long ago. His face was bleeding from all 7 apertures, and he looked exceptionally frightening. However, none of the people present dared to underestimate Yi Shiwen. If it were them, how many of them would dare to say that they could escape unscathed under such an attack? Not to mention, he was in the 8th heaven of the Transcendence realm. If it were them, they would be blasted to death on the spot. There was no other possibility. If they could not do it themselves, what right did they have to criticize him? Moreover, Yi Shiwen seemed to have the upper hand. While Yi Shiwen's 7 orifices were frighteningly bleeding, it was nothing compared to the injuries suffered by that 100 Races Alliance elite. After being hit by the essence bullet on the spot, it was impossible for anyone of the same level to survive. Even an expert at the mid-stage of the half-step sky human realm would have been killed by the blast long ago. Only an expert at the late stage of the half-step sky human realm would be able to resist it, albeit barely. However, if they were not careful, they would end up like this one, being gravely wounded. Everyone secretly looked at this scene, and they were secretly startled. This Yi Shiwen was far more tyrannical than they had imagined. He wasn't a cute kitten, but a lion cub that could bite people. Although this lion cub hadn't grown up yet, it was enough to bite people to death. This made many restless experts calm down all of a sudden. They weren't afraid of Yishuan. Instead, they had to plan carefully before taking action. They had to choose a more favorable opportunity. They wouldn't act unscrupulously like they did just now. They didn't put Yishuan in their eyes. Although it did not dispel the greedy thoughts in their hearts, they were also much more careful. They would not rush forward all at once, lest they end up benefiting others. To some extent, Yishuan's goal of establishing his dominance had been achieved. Yishuan stood on the ground that had turned into sand, and his ears were still buzzing. That attack just now was too terrifying. If it were not for the 8-treasure universe cauldron that had dissipated most of the power, he might have been seriously injured on the spot. In such a situation, combat power would not be of much use. The difference between their realms was too great. Even if his combat power was superior, it would be useless. When facing this expert of the 100 Races Alliance who was half a step into the celestial realm, he could only protect himself. That Yuan Qi bullet just now had drawn 1/3 of the real ether in his body in one go, and his body suddenly felt empty. There was no longer the bulging feeling when real ether filled his body. He did not have the divine desolate blood fruit now, and the remaining energy of the divine desolate blood fruit had long been consumed over the past year or so. With his own ability, even with the Phoenix regeneration technique, it was impossible for him to recover so much power in an instant. That was why the Yuan Qi bullet could only be used as his trump card, and not as a regular method, because it would consume too much real ether. A regular Yuan Qi bullet would only consume 1/10 of his real ether, but a Yuan Qi bullet that only consumed 1/10 of his real ether would not be able to seriously injure this expert of the 100 Races Alliance. Moreover, the heaven imprisoning finger had consumed a lot of his real ether. Although this set of heaven-level martial arts did not consume as much as the Yuan Qi bullet, it was still not small. Such a series of combo attacks had directly drained most of the real ether in his body. Huff! 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 He was panting constantly. At first, his breath smelled of blood, and even bloody foam, but after a dozen breaths, the smell of blood completely disappeared. Moreover, the bloodstains on his body began to dry up and scab, falling off his body completely. In just a dozen breaths, he had recovered to his peak state, while the expert of the 100 Races Alliance on the other side had only just stabilized his injuries. Although the degree of injury on both sides was different, the difference in strength between the two was still obvious. Everyone stared at Yishuan, dumbfounded. Time and time again, Yishuan had displayed a foundation that amazed everyone. Apart from his superb resistance, his healing ability alone was far more tyrannical than they had expected. At that moment, the battlefield fell into an eerie silence. There were many tyrannical experts elsewhere who were fighting over powerful divine items, but it was silent on this battlefield, and everyone's attention was focused on the battle between the two. Moreover, as the battle between the two fell into a standstill, everyone held their breath and waited. The expert of the 100 Races Alliance had just suppressed his injuries, and a forced battle would only worsen his injuries. On the other hand, Yishuan had yet to recover his real ether, so he did not want to act rashly. Both sides had their own scruples, and for a moment, the scene was in a complete stalemate. The expert of the 100 Races Alliance glared at Yishuan with a cold and hateful gaze. He did not expect to fail miserably at such an easy task and suffer such a great loss at the hands of that brat. It was something he had not expected at all, and it was not just him. No one else had expected such a scene. Whoosh! Another few streams of light flew in this direction, wrapped around the divine items, and flew directly in this direction. It was only then that everyone remembered that the fight for the divine items in the treasure vault was not over yet, and it was not yet time to settle things with Yishuan. Seeing the divine items flying past them, everyone could not hold back and began to snatch them one after another. A terrifying battle broke out between them in an instant, with Celestial Realm experts and half-step Celestial Realm experts all engaged in a terrifying battle. In order to fight for the divine items, Everyone's eyes were red with anxiety because they knew very well that this might be the last wave, and if they did not fight for it now, there might not be any left. Naturally, they would not hold back now. The battle between Yi Shiwen and the half-step Celestial Realm expert of the Hundred Races Alliance suddenly became secondary, a battle that no one paid attention to. The expert of the Hundred Races Alliance looked at Yi Shiwen with a somewhat ugly expression, somewhat hesitant. At this time, should he fight for the divine items that were flying over, or should he take care of this brat who caused him to fail miserably at such an easy task? It was a very difficult decision to make, and if he let Yi Shiwen go, he would not be satisfied. Moreover, Yi Shiwen still had so many divine items on him. However, if he were to continue in a stalemate with Yi Shiwen, it would be impossible for him to take Yi Shiwen down in a short time, judging from the current situation. This brat was as if he were made of iron, and he could not kill him even with that kind of attack. While he was still hesitating, the entire treasure vault began to spit out the last wave of divine items, and the entire treasure vault began to shake wildly. It was a scene of earth-shattering, and countless spiritual energies in the surroundings began to boil wildly. It's coming! At this time, Yi Qiong, who had been a little careless in fighting for those divine items, suddenly opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed in his eyes, as if what he had been waiting for a long time had finally arrived. What happened before was nothing at all. Although he was a little careless, no one could compete with him, and as long as he had his eyes on something, he would definitely make a move. However, this was different, as it was the true purpose of him coming to the treasure vault. At the same time, Tung Tong Tian, Hao Lianjuan, and Bing Wuji were suddenly in high spirits. The moment that these people had been waiting for together was finally coming, and the thing that they were really fighting for was finally coming out. Boom! 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 The entire treasure vault began to shake up and down as if it was shaken by a huge force, and then a dazzling light shot straight out of it. Chapter 13:21. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire treasure vault seemed to be shaken by a huge force. It began to shake up and down. Then a dazzling light shot out from it. Immediately after, a stream of light shot out from the sky. It wrapped something and leaped out of the treasure vault. After this thing leaped out, the entire treasure vault stopped shaking. Everyone wanted to see what was spat out. However, the light was too dazzling. They couldn't see what it was. At the same time, Yi Qiong, Tung Tong Tian, Hao Lianjuan, and Bing Wuji acted at the same time. They grabbed the ball of light almost at the same time. Hao Lianjuan was the first to grab it. His position was the closest because the ball of light was heading in his direction. He reached out with his hand and crushed the ball of light on the spot. However, the original appearance of the ball of light was revealed. It was an ancient word that exuded a simple and unadorned aura. Do. Yi Qianqian recognized this unadorned tadpole-like word immediately. It was a very ancient word for Do. Although the ancient barons had experienced millions of years of inheritance, the inheritance had never been broken. Hence, the words didn't change very frequently. There weren't many kinds of words in total. For these warriors who were successful in cultivation, their memory had been completely deepened. It wasn't a problem for them to remember these ancient words. Of course, due to the changes, only some ancient clans, such as the Yi clan, which had stood for countless years, could retain the systematic study of ancient words. Only the disciples of these powerful clans could really recognize various ancient words, as well as various treasures. This was an advantage that the individual cultivators couldn't compare to. The strength of these disciples from powerful clans was completely reflected in this aspect. They were erudite and knowledgeable. Compared to these people, the individual cultivators were like primary school students in front of professors. They lacked knowledge and didn't know many things. There were even some people who had obtained ancient books but had no way of deciphering them. They had to think of a way to find someone to translate these ancient books. As for the children of powerful families, they might know a lot of ancient characters. Even if they encountered something they didn't understand, they could go to their sect elders. There was no problem at all. Just like now, there were also a large number of rogue cultivators who didn't recognize these ancient characters. At this time, those rich and powerful youngsters naturally had a sense of superiority because most of them could recognize these ancient characters. At this time, they looked at those rogue cultivators with slight contempt. They had enough capital and pride to look down on these rogue cultivators. Although Yi Shiwen had returned to the Yi clan, he didn't have the time to learn these trivial things. Just like the trip to the library in the true martial domain, Yi Shiwen became a knowledgeable person in one fell swoop. It was just that a lot of the knowledge he learned at that time wasn't necessarily practical in the ancient Baron's continent. He suddenly realized that perhaps he really should take some time to learn all of this knowledge. Otherwise, he would just be a martial artist. A true martial artist would certainly have a profound cultivation, profound knowledge, and omniscient knowledge. This was inevitable. Those martial artists who only knew how to cultivate simply didn't know how to condense a domain because they didn't even know what a domain was. How could they comprehend it? And how could they condense it? These were also things that complemented each other. Yi Shiwen felt that now was the time to learn. Although Yi Mo had been guiding him by the side, Yi Mo often only explained to him when he encountered something. He was like a master who could answer all kinds of questions, but when asked about the principles, he didn't know anything at all. Without going through the system's explanation, there was still a huge difference. Yi Shiwen looked at the treasury. He didn't expect that the last thing the treasury spat out would be such an ancient word. What's up with this ancient word? Yi Shiwen asked Yi Qianqian using secret sound transmission. Soon, Yi Qianqian's reply came through secret sound transmission. This ancient word is very old. It seems to be a language used in a certain era. It's very old, like the legendary divine text. In a distant era, this kind of language was popular for a period of time. Yi Shiwen was silent for a moment. He still knew these basics. No one could calculate the history of the ancient Baron's continent. No one could live forever. Therefore, even a tyrant like the Yi clan couldn't possibly know how long the ancient Baron's continent had been passed down. Even before the establishment of the Yi clan, there were still countless years of Baron era. Therefore, although it might take a very long time for a type of language to slowly evolve after so many years, there were already a lot of these words. The closer the era was to the present, the easier it was to understand. The more ancient the era was, the more difficult it was to understand. Just like the word dough, it was extremely obscure and difficult to understand. Otherwise, with Yi Shiwen's attainments, even if it wasn't a question that could be used in modern times, it wouldn't be a problem for him to guess this word based on the meaning and shape of the word. However, this word was clearly beyond his knowledge. In fact, it wasn't that the closer the era was to the present, the more perfect the language was. On the contrary, the more ancient the language was, the more ancient and mysterious it was. It even possessed many mysterious powers. The language itself was the embodiment of the great Tao. In fact, if the legendary divine text were to be casually spoken, it would possess great power that could suppress the enemy to death. However, that would also require the user to possess extremely high strength. As the distant mythological era passed, those words were slowly lost. This was because no one knew how to use them, and they couldn't use them at all. It was possible that they would explode and die before they could shout it out. Therefore, the language that was slowly evolved later on. The more modern the language was, the less powerful it was. So, the language had become a mere recording tool. However, there were still some almighty experts who could condense their own understanding of the Tao into a word. It wasn't the divine text of the mythological era. However, at this point, the form of the language was only the appearance. The real essence was still the embodiment of the true great Tao contained within. These words were different from ordinary words. They were the so-called Tao text. However, these were things that only existed in myths and legends for the current Yi Shiwen. With his current cultivation, even if he tried his best, it would be impossible for him to summarize his own Tao into a word. Not to mention those in the myths and legends who condensed their own experiences into Tao runes and then combined them into a mental cultivation method. That kind of cultivation was absolutely shocking. Yi Shiwen remembered the word Wu in his mind. He sank into it, and sure enough, the word Wu was still there. Along with the appearance of the word Do, the word Wu began to shine with a strong light, as if it wanted to resonate with the word Do. Whenever the word Wu trembled violently, the mysterious space in his mind would erupt with a burst of seven-colored divine light, instantly suppressing the word Wu. Obviously, the word Wu was also a Dao rune, but it was copied from the Martial Path tablet. A bold idea suddenly emerged in his mind. Could it be that all the martial arts on the Martial Path tablet were derived from the word Wu? This was not impossible. The word Wu was obviously the essence of a certain almighty expert's understanding of martial arts. It might be a fusion of all the martial arts he had learned. It was like a compressed package on a computer in his previous life. There might be a lot of things in this compressed package, and under certain circumstances, it could also be decompressed. Yi Xuan couldn't help but feel a little excited when he thought of the countless martial arts on the Martial Dao tablet. If he could thoroughly understand the word Wu, these martial arts would just be at his fingertips. It would be nothing at all. Even if he practiced many martial arts in the future, it would be very convenient. Because of this, he couldn't let the word Wu be exposed. Although this was a copy from the mysterious space, once it was exposed, one could imagine how much trouble it would cause. Whether it was Yi Qiong, Tung Tian, Bing Wuji, or Hao Lianjuan, all of them were fighting over this Dao text. If they knew that he had the Dao text, the consequences would be unimaginable. Perhaps Tung Tian would even have the thought of tearing him apart. This Dao rune is mine. Hao Lianjuan laughed loudly, and a superior aura spread out in all directions. Don't even think about it. How dare you? In your dreams. Suddenly, a large number of shouts came from behind, and all kinds of attacks blasted towards Hao Lianjuan at the same time. Not only Tung Tian, Yi Qiong, Bing Wuji, and many other celestial realm experts also attacked in an instant. They also coveted this Dao text. Although they didn't come prepared like Yi Qiong and the other two, they simply came for the word fighting. But now that they saw it, how could they let it go so easily? If they could snatch a Dao text, whether it was for their own use or to sell it, it would be invaluable. Especially if it was used for one's own comprehension, one's state of mind and comprehension would probably have a huge improvement in a short time. And at this time, suddenly, a cold shout came from Hao Lianjuan's body. The qi on his body turned into a big hand, grabbing towards all kinds of attacks. Bang! 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 These attacks didn't even touch Hao Lianjuan's body, and they were all crushed by the qi hands. And when Hao Lianjuan was about to grab the word fighting in his hand, a cold palm suddenly shrouded him, as if it wanted to freeze him in an instant. Chapter 13:22. It was Bing Wuji. He directly froze Hao Lianjuan with a palm, and then a few more figures leaped over. Bang! Hao Lianjuan broke the ice almost immediately, but at this time he was stopped, and he had already lost the upper hand. A group of experts had already pounced over, but he was still the one at the forefront. In an instant, a huge hand flew out, turning into a monstrous giant hand that seemed to cover the sky, directly grabbing towards the fighting character. Boom! However, a sharp sword chi swept over, and Yi Qiong threw out a sword chi, blasting that monstrous giant hand. Everyone was attacking, and no one held back. Everyone knew that this fighting character was priceless. If they could understand the secret of this fighting character, their strength would be able to make huge breakthroughs in a short period of time. This kind of Dao rune was the condensation of all the blood and sweat of a great expert, and it was the complete essence. This fighting character was surrounded by waves of Dao runes. Clang! Clang! Boom! All kinds of terrifying sounds and explosions were shuttling back and forth. In this kind of situation, it was useless to say anything. It all depended on one's own strength. Three brothers, I want this fighting character. I owe you a favor, and I will definitely repay you in the future. How about it? At this time, Tung Tian took the lead and shouted. He was not in a hurry to fight for it, because he knew very well that in the situation where everyone was fighting and restraining each other, even if he rushed up, the chances of getting it were not very high. It was better to discuss it with the four of them first. As for the other Celestial Realm experts, they were completely ignored by him. Compared to the four of them, those Celestial Realm experts were much weaker, and the four of them did not really care about them at all. These four could be considered as the most powerful experts in the entire treasure vault. This could be counted as the first time the four of them fought together, and it would probably be the last time in this treasure vault. However, none of the Sky Human Stage experts were willing to give up. At that moment, the fight character in the middle had been locked down by everyone's divine sense. It was locked up in the middle of the sky, making it impossible for it to move. That place had become a forbidden area for everyone. No one dared to casually break into that place. That was the equivalent of a dead end. A favor? Tung Tian, you think too highly of yourself. How much do you think a favor of yours is worth? In my eyes, it's not even worth half a dime, let alone this priceless Dao rune. You think too highly of yourself. Hao Lianjuan laughed loudly, trying his best to mock Tung Tian. Tung Tian's face alternated between green and white from the mockery, but he didn't do anything. He knew very well that he couldn't really fight against everyone alone, so he had to use this method. Whether it was Bing Wuji, Hao Lianjuan, or Yi Qiong, they were no match for Yao Ruo. In fact, they were even slightly stronger than him. At this time, the city wall was not the best way. At that moment, a figure directly rushed in. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he grabbed the fight character. It turned out to be an expert of the Sky Human Stage. He took advantage of the time when the experts were restraining each other and directly made his move. It was undeniable that he also seized the opportunity very accurately, seizing the gap between these people. Although there were four experts in front of them, how could these experts of the Sky Human Stage give up so easily? As long as they seized the opportunity, they would attack with all their strength. If they could seize the fight character, then there was definitely hope that they could be on equal footing with these four experts in the future. If they could comprehend the essence of the character, their future would be limitless. Moreover, at this time, when they looked at the fight character, their eyes were already a little red. Go away! Hao Lianjuan suddenly became furious. A long halberd appeared in her hand, and the long halberd suddenly shot out in an instant. The expert of the Sky Human Stage didn't even have time to touch the fight character before he was instantly pierced by the long halberd and nailed to the ground. The corpse struggled for a while, and then completely stopped moving. There was no vitality in it. The death of this person completely stimulated those experts of the Sky Human Stage, making them sober up a lot. Indeed, they were experts of the Sky Human Stage. For those experts of the half-step Sky Human Stage outside, they were almost existences that could take whatever they wanted. They were almost invincible like gods. However, in addition to them, there were also four great fierce gods here, and the strength of any one of them was far superior to these people. Just now, when Hao Lianjuan made his move, many people couldn't even see the traces clearly. They only saw that the unlucky expert of the Sky Human Stage was nailed to the ground. This was an expert of the Sky Human Stage. Their corpses could be said to be a great treasure, but now they were killed by Hao Lianjuan so casually. Suddenly, they had a feeling of flinching. However, it was just this feeling. It was absolutely impossible to make them retreat. At most, they would change from the original bravery to attacking secretly. Everyone was afraid of each other and did not dare to make a move. Instead, it formed a strange balance, but everyone knew that this balance could not last forever. After spitting out that ancient character, the treasure house was also about to close. If they did not get out, they would not have a chance to get out in this lifetime. This treasure house would only open once in tens of thousands of years. If they could not get out in time, it would be equivalent to courting death in this place. Yi Shiwen, you must get that ancient character. At that moment, Yi Mo's voice appeared in Yi Shiwen's mind. All of his attention was on the expert of the 100 Races Alliance in front of him. The sudden appearance of Yi Mo's voice gave him a fright. However, he immediately smiled bitterly. Didn't he see what was going on over there? The four great fierce gods were fighting over that ancient character. Even if an expert of the Sky Human Stage went over, it would still be a dead end, let alone a puny law manifestation like him. As long as he dared to go in, he would become the focus of everyone's attacks. Even Yi Qiong, who had just saved him, would probably make a move to kill this arrogant brat. This ancient character might have been left behind by an almighty, just like your Wu character. Although this kind of ancient character can't be compared to the Dao character naturally formed by the Great Way, it's still very close to the Dao character. Although people nowadays call them Dao characters, they're actually not Dao characters. They're pseudo-Dao characters that were condensed by some almighty to imitate Dao characters. Dao characters are truly immortal. Once they're born, they'll never be obliterated. However, these pseudo-Dao characters are different. Generally speaking, the more powerful an almighty is, the longer the pseudo-Dao characters left behind will be maintained. Yimo said with some excitement, Dao text is truly immortal and truly unique. There will only be one word Dao text in the world. If this word exists, then it will not appear in other places. However, even if it is a pseudo-Dao text, if you can obtain this fighting character and combine it with your martial character to form the two fighting characters, you will be able to comprehend a little bit of it, and your cultivation will soar. Yimo was still talking incessantly. Clearly, he had been awakened from his long slumber by the fluctuations of the fighting character. Yi Shiwen was somewhat speechless. Wasn't it courting death to compete for this fighting character at this time? However, Yimo's words had reminded him of how the martial character in his mind had come about. Wasn't it copied by that mysterious space? If this martial character could be copied, then what about this fighting character? Could it also be copied? If he could copy it, then he wouldn't need to compete with those fierce celestial being experts. It would undoubtedly be much safer. True Dao runes were unique and could not be replicated. There could only be replicas created by almighty beings. However, that was not the same thing as replicas. Replicas were replicas that had replicated the core of the Dao runes. They were exactly the same. Just like his martial character, it was quietly lying in his mind, suppressed by the mysterious space. Thinking of this, he immediately began to act without any hesitation. He directly looked at that fighting character. At the same time, he began to urge that mysterious space and began to try to analyze that fighting character. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen's eyes soon fell into a state of confusion. It was as if his entire being had been sucked into that fighting character. It was as if he was swimming in the ocean of the fighting character. Unlike the martial character contained countless martial arts principles and was incomparably profound. The essence of the fighting character was in that fighting character. Fighting against the heavens was endless joy. Fighting against the earth was endless joy. Fighting against others was endless joy. There were also all kinds of combat techniques that played out in front of him like a movie. His entire being seemed to be completely immersed in it. And that phenomenon was almost immediately noticed by that expert from the 100 Races Alliance. Kid, I think you're really courting death. To think that you'd actually have an epiphany at this time. He grinned. Although for many martial artists, epiphany was something that was hard to encounter in their lifetime, and once they encountered it, they should be ecstatic. However, it also depended on the situation. Under normal circumstances, they should be happy, but to have an epiphany in this situation, wasn't it the same as handing over their life to others? If this wasn't courting death, then what was it? Almost instantly, he made his move and grabbed at Yi Shiwen. His eagle-like claws were aimed directly at Yi Shiwen's neck, as if he was going to break it on the spot. And at that very moment, whoosh! A sharp sword aura pierced through the air. A snow-white sword aura directly slashed down from the sky, and the 100 Races Alliance expert's claws were chopped off on the spot. Ah! My hand! He screamed again and again at once, clutching his broken arm and screaming incessantly. Just then, another sword aura came right after him. Chapter 13:23. The sound of sword chi piercing flesh was heard, and that elite of the 100 Race Alliance did not even have time to react or cry out in pain before he was cut in half on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere. Yi Qianqian's figure floated over and stood guard by Yi Shiwen's side like a fairy floating in the air. However, The blood dripping from the snow jade sword in her hand clearly told everyone that she would kill people too. There was no coldness in her expression, only determination. Those who had planned to take advantage of the situation to attack Yi Shiwen now noticed Yi Qianqian, the fairy-like woman floating in the air. It was different from how she looked when she was fighting for the divine items just now. Her expression was solemn like never before. At that moment, anyone who wanted to make a move against Yi Shiwen would have to go through Yi Qianqian first. They could ignore Yi Shiwen, but they could not ignore Yi Qianqian. That elite of the 100-race alliance was a good example. He could not even withstand a single blow from Yi Qianqian before he was cut in half on the spot. At that moment, everyone was a little gloomy. With Yi Qianqian standing guard here, it would be troublesome for them to make a move against Yi Shiwen. Meanwhile, all the Celestial Realm elites had entered into fighting mode again. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot, and they could not come over. At that moment, they could only watch helplessly as Yi Qianqian guarded Yi Shiwen, unable to do anything. Or rather, in their eyes, Yi Qianqian was not guarding a person, but a pile of treasures. Especially those hundreds of divine items, which made them exceptionally jealous. Yi Qianqian, do you really want to go against all of us? At that moment, a half-step Celestial Realm elite asked. As long as you let him hand over those hundreds of divine items, we promise not to make things difficult for you. There were also some who were rather wary of the Yi clan's power. After all, the Yi clan had also sent a top-notch elite, Yi Qiong, this time. With Yi Qiong around, it was like a nuclear deterrent. Yi Qianqian didn't say anything. She just let the aftermath of the battle between the Celestial Realm experts blow on her body. Her white clothes fluttered, just like a celestial being. Her expression became even colder. She didn't change because of these people's words, but her meaning had already been conveyed very clearly. The faces of those half-step Celestial Realm experts were a bit ugly. Yi Qianqian was like a stubborn stone. No matter what they said, it was impossible to move her. If he wanted to make it through, he would have to pass through Yi Qianqian. Let's attack together. I don't believe that she can block all of us by herself. When the time comes, we'll split the divine objects equally. Not only this brat who intercepted us, but even Yi Qianqian also has a lot of divine objects. I don't believe that the law doesn't punish the masses. The Yi family won't do anything to us. At this time, an expert suggested. As soon as this was said, suddenly many people began to become restless. They were wary of the existence of the Yi family, especially the existence of Yi Qiong. For them, the existence of the Yi family was simply like the existence of a big killing machine. Secondly, they were afraid of Yi Qianqian's fighting strength, the strength of which could easily slaughter any one of them. However, if everyone attacked together, they would be able to push Yi Qianqian to the ground. Moreover, the law doesn't punish the masses. The Yi family wouldn't really do anything to them. Thinking of this, everyone's mind suddenly became active, and then, in an instant, all of them rushed in the direction of Yi Qianqian and Yi Shiwen, for fear that they would not be able to grab the divine object if they were too slow. Facing these experts flying over, Yi Qianqian's expression didn't change at all. Boom! Another shocking sword aura swept out from his body. The snow jade sword in his hand buzzed intensely, as if it had sensed the hostility from these people. The sky was instantly filled with wind and snow. Go to hell! At that moment, an expert half a step into the sky being realm took the lead and arrived before Yi Qianqian. In an instant, he turned into tens of thousands of shadowy figures in the sky, filling up the entire sky. It was as if the entire sky was his. However, only one of them was the real him. If one couldn't distinguish it accurately, they might be besieged to death. Although these were all illusions, they had real fighting strength. Yi Qianqian's body didn't move. With her slender body, she blocked in front of Yi Shiwen. The snow jade sword in her hand seemed to have a mind of its own. In an instant, it shot out a sword light that directly cut through the sky, instantly piercing the void on Yi Qianqian's left side. Just when everyone thought that it missed, suddenly, a stream of blood flowed down from the void, followed by a figure falling from the void. There was a big hole in his chest, from which blood continuously flowed out. He opened his eyes wide and looked at Yi Qianqian, dumbfounded. He couldn't imagine how his illusion technique had been seen through by Yi Qianqian. Your illusion technique is indeed very clever. Maybe you can fool me, but how can you fool it? Yi Qianqian said lightly. This time, she was able to kill him because of the snow jade sword. Bang! The expert fell from the sky, and on the spot, it was like a small mountain had fallen, creating a huge pit in the ground. Each of these experts had tyrannical cultivation, and it was unknown how many times their bodies had been tempered. Their muscles were very tight. Although it didn't seem like much, each of them was very heavy. This expert had been killed by Yi Qianqian, but the other experts didn't stop besieging Yi Qianqian. These experts' cultivation was not lower than Yi Qianqian's, and each of them was at the peak of the late stage of the celestial realm. At this time, when all of them attacked together, even Yi Qianqian couldn't block all of them. Fortunately, she had the snow jade sword. At this time, the snow jade sword had just been subdued, and at this time, it erupted with a terrifying power. In front of the snow jade sword, those who thought that they were extraordinary, one after another, rushed forward to die. One by one, they died under the snow jade sword. However, these people's deaths didn't make these people afraid. On the contrary, it stimulated them even more. Under the joint attack of these people, Yi Qianqian also gradually began to be unable to hold on, and the snow jade sword's defensive range gradually began to shrink. At this time, the fight for the word of fighting was also gradually coming to an end. Among the celestial realm experts, the ones who really had the ability to fight for it were Yi Qiong, Tung Tongtian, Bing Wuji, and Hao Lianjuan. The other celestial realm experts finally realized the huge gap between them and were completely reduced to the existence of bystanders. Although there was no lack of people who wanted to take advantage of the situation, it was easier said than done to take advantage of the situation. Moreover, they all had a large number of experts supporting them, and there were many celestial realm experts among them. If any one of them could get the word of fighting, then there was absolutely no possibility of it being taken away by others. Among the four of them, Yi Qiong's strength was firmly above that of the other three, and he was able to block the three of them. Everyone understood that the outcome of the battle was about to be decided. At this time, it was only Bing Wuji, Hao Lianjuan, and Tung Tongtian who were unwilling to give up and were still fighting. After a while, perhaps the word of fighting would completely fall into Tung Tongtian's hands. Boom! 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 The fight between these four ferocious gods was extremely terrifying for everyone. Even those who were half a step into the celestial realm could be injured if they were close. Those celestial realm experts also had to use all their strength to protect themselves. Even if they were all in the celestial realm, there was still a huge gap between their strength. On the other side, Yi Qianqian was completely at a disadvantage. Facing the surprise attack of dozens or even hundreds of experts who were half a step into the celestial realm, she could not completely block it. And at this time, a terrifying and majestic aura descended on the battlefield, directly crushing down on Yi Qianqian. The snow jade sword on Yi Qianqian's body instantly exploded with a terrifying sword force, rushing up to the sky, as if it was automatically protecting its owner, but also as if it did not allow anyone to provoke it. In an instant, that sword force rushed up to the sky, instantly dispersing that majestic and terrifying aura. Then another figure directly rushed in. It was a middle-aged man with a dark face, a somewhat skinny figure, and a small mustache on his face, looking a bit wretched. Hand over the divine item. The wretched middle-aged man laughed strangely, and a tyrannical aura swept out from his body unscrupulously. He was actually a celestial realm expert. After the autonomous fight for the word fighting was hopeless, he instantly joined the fight for the divine item on Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian actually had hundreds of divine items on him, which was more than what he had. How could he be happy? He was just a kid at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm. How could he have so many divine items? It was really a good opportunity sent to him by the heavens. Although he could not get the word fighting, if he could get these hundreds of divine items, it would not be a wasted trip. Seeing this celestial realm expert make his move, all the experts in the late stage of the celestial realm who were still besieging Yi Qianqian were as quiet as cicadas in winter. They were very clear about the tyrannical and terrifying power of a celestial realm expert. Isn't that the Wang clan celestial realm expert, Wang Tiansuo? Didn't he go to fight for the word fighting? Why did he suddenly come back? Not good. The fight for the word fighting is about to come to an end. Yi Qiong of the Yi clan has the absolute upper hand, and the winner will be decided soon. These experts who were originally besieging Yi Qianqian only now noticed that Yi Qiong had the absolute upper hand, and seeing that he was about to get the word fighting, their hearts involuntarily tightened. Chapter 13:24. They originally wanted to take advantage of the time difference. They were all very clear that if those celestial realm experts still had a chance, then they who were half a step into the celestial realm definitely had no chance. If they went in, they would only be killed by those celestial realm experts. Therefore, instead of thinking about the word fight, it was better to make the first move, kill Yi Shiwen, and seize the hundreds of divine objects from him. They had also noticed that from the beginning, there were actually quite a few celestial realm experts who had also noticed Yi Shiwen over here, and they definitely wanted to make a move. Therefore, if they wanted to make a move, they could only take advantage of the time difference. While these Heaven Realm Masters were fighting for the word fight, they could directly make a move and seize all the divine objects in Yi Shiwen's hands first. And seeing that they were about to succeed, even if Yi Qianqian had the snow jade sword in her hand, under the collective siege of the Heaven Realm Masters, relying on the power of the snow jade sword, she was constantly forced to retreat. However, they did not expect Wang Tiansuo to appear at this time. Moreover, he directly attacked Yi Qianqian. This completely shocked everyone. If a celestial realm expert intervened, all their efforts would undoubtedly be in vain. All their previous efforts would be in vain, and in the end, they would all be benefiting these celestial realm experts. Wang Tiansuo looked at Yi Qianqian with a strange smile, and there was even a somewhat obscene look in his eyes. The Wang clan and the Yi clan were originally sworn enemies. At this time, with such a good opportunity, how could Wang Tiansuo give it up? Yi Qianqian frowned slightly, and her pretty face showed a bit of a look of disgust. This trace of disgust was caught by Wang Tiansuo, and he suddenly became angry. Although he was indeed a bit obscene, the dignity of a Heaven Realm Master could not be violated. Boom! He did not make any other superfluous movements but just slammed down on the spot with a big hand. Suddenly, a terrifying scene appeared. The entire void completely collapsed, and it did not collapse rapidly but bit by bit, shrouding Yi Qianqian bit by bit. That terrifying power, even those experts who were half a step into the Heaven Realm could feel it from far away. Everyone could feel Wang Tiansuo's vicious heart. She wanted to force Yi Qianqian to make a choice. She didn't rush to make a decision. Instead, she slowly made a decision and waited for Yi Qianqian's choice. If she chose to resist stubbornly, then she would die. If she chose to evade, then Yi Shiwen would die. He would be killed on the spot by Wang Tiansuo. This was simply a monkey's trick. In other words, Wang Tiansuo did not take Yi Qianqian seriously at all. She was simply toying with her like a monkey. In other words, she had to use this method to see Yi Qianqian completely collapse. At this time, everyone was worried for Yi Qianqian. Even if they were besieging Yi Qianqian just now, they were conscious that compared to Wang Tiansuo, they were still relatively nobler. Moreover, Wang Tiansuo's attack at this time was clearly to snatch the prey. Although they could not compete with Wang Tiansuo, this did not prevent them from cheering for Yi Qianqian in their hearts. In front of everyone's eyes, Yi Qianqian did not leave on the spot as many people thought she would. Saving her life was more important. Instead, she chose to resist stubbornly. The snow jade sword in her hand seemed to have integrated into her body. Immediately, a burst of powerful sword chi erupted from her body. It crazily swept over the top of her head, forming a vortex of sword chi. Then, it directly turned into a huge ice sword and instantly slashed down on Wang Tiansuo. Boom! The huge ice sword, and Wang Tiansuo's big hand collided fiercely. For a moment, the entire void completely collapsed. Ice fragments swirled in the air, and it was completely blown away. Immediately after, an even bigger collision swept out boundless waves of air, sweeping out layer by layer. Walalala! At this time, Yi Qianqian and Yi Shiwen's clothes were frantically fluttering. That terrifying pressure swept from above and below. That huge ice sword firmly blocked the whole big hand. Although the power of the snow jade sword was extraordinary, the gap between the celestial realm and the half-step celestial realm was like heaven and earth. Even though Yi Qianqian had done her best, she could only barely block Wang Tiansuo's big hand. Little girl with character, I like it. A somewhat wretched smile appeared on Wang Tiansuo's face. As he said that, he increased the input of spiritual ether. The big hand that was originally blocked by the huge ice sword began to slowly press down. As it pressed down inch by inch, the entire sky also collapsed inch by inch. This kind of slow scene was far more shocking than the scenes of rapid collapses. And under the continuous pressure of Wang Tiansuo, Yi Qianqian, who was originally upright and slender, began to slightly tremble. She was like a weak woman supporting a collapsing wall. Bit by bit, the range of the huge ice sword was shrinking bit by bit. It was completely compressed. Everyone was also watching and waiting to see how long Yi Qianqian could hold on. Although many people were very clear that Wang Tiansuo had not used his full strength and was just playing with Yi Qianqian. Even so, for the experts in the late stage of the half-step celestial realm, it was still a disaster. Little girl, as long as you surrender and hand over this boy, I will let bygones be bygones and let you go. How about it? The wretched smile on Wang Tiansuo's face also disappeared a little. He did not expect that Yi Qianqian could hold on so much. If it was an ordinary expert in the late stage of the half-step celestial realm, they would not be able to stop it at all. At this time, they would have already run away. Who was this boy to her? Was it worth it? This thought instantly appeared in the minds of the experts in the late stage of the half-step celestial realm. They had been cultivating for many years, and even entering the celestial realm was only half a step away. However, it seemed that they had not felt this kind of emotion for a long time. They were willing to sacrifice for someone like this. The higher the cultivation, the more they could understand what it meant to be lonely at the top. Many of their former companions and friends had also slowly left them. At this time, many people began to worry about Yi Qianqian. The gap between the experts in the half-step celestial realm and the celestial realm was too big. Facing Wang Tiansuo's words, Yi Qianqian did not answer, but there was a bit of disdain in her expression. She said, "Today's matter. I will repay you in the future." This sentence was like trying to be brave. Generally, as long as one was wise, he wouldn't say such a thing. This was often said by the weak, but the weak were often the ones with the least human rights. Therefore, people often held an attitude of ridicule towards such words. However, the target was Yi Qianqian. No one felt that it was so difficult, and no one felt that it was impossible. Everyone had seen Yi Qianqian's cultivation and strength. As long as she developed smoothly, it was only a matter of time before she entered the celestial realm in the future. At that time, it was really possible to repay her. Wang Tiansuo's expression suddenly changed. How could he not think of what everyone thought? At this time, a bit of killing intent flashed across his face. Originally, he did not take Yi Qianqian seriously. Even Yi Qianqian could not threaten him, but now that he thought about it, it was impossible for Yi Qianqian to threaten him now, but it would not be possible in the future. With the cultivation of the late stage of the half-step celestial realm, she could compete with him until now. This potential was amazing, and her future achievements were simply limitless. Such a person was a great threat to him and to the Wang family. For public and private reasons, he must get rid of her. At this time, the first thing that came to his mind was not the hundreds of divine objects on Yi Shiwen. For him, although these divine objects were important at this time, the most important thing was to kill Yi Qianqian. Once all the experts of the Yi family were free, then there would be no more opportunity. Sure enough, at this time, seeing that Wang Tiansuo was about to kill Yi Qianqian, the experts of the Yi family shouted one after another. Stop! Wang Tiansa, you dare to hurt her? Wang Tiansa, do you dare to be a man and bully our younger generation? If you have the ability, then come and fight with me. However, at this time, the experts of the Yi family were some distance away, and they could not catch up in a short time. Moreover, Wang Tiansa did not have any intention of stopping, so they could only watch Wang Tiansa press his palm down bit by bit, as if he wanted to crush Yi Qianqian to death. Poochie! The palm pressed down another 10 feet, and Yi Qianqian finally could not resist anymore. Her pretty face turned red, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the first time she had been injured since she came here, but she did not regret it. On the contrary, she spat out all the blood essence on the snow jade sword. The snow jade sword suddenly burst with endless light, and once again stabilized the situation, blocking the big hand. Damn it! Wang Tianhua suddenly felt a little angry. Yi Qianqian was too stubborn, and he did not feel any sense of accomplishment. He did not feel like he was playing with people in the palm of his hand. Especially, he thought that he could see through people's hearts, but this was the first time that he had failed with Yi Qianqian. He thought that Yi Qianqian would decisively give up on him, but he did not expect that she would not. His big hand instantly turned into a big seal and directly smashed down from the sky. It seemed as if it wanted to smash a big hole in the sky and directly smash down towards Yi Qianqian. He had already lost his patience, and he was like a cat playing with a mouse before eating it. Now, he had lost his patience, and he wanted to smash her to death on the spot to prevent the experts of the Yi family from escaping. Yi Qianqian looked at the big seal that was smashing down, and her pretty face was still stubborn. At this critical moment, a golden light suddenly flashed, and a hand penetrated through it, and grabbed Yi Qianqian's white and tender hand, and instantly pulled her out of the big seal. Chapter 13:25. Boom! That huge palm print ruthlessly slammed onto the ground. Boom! The entire ground was smashed into a huge pit, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. When the smoke and dust dissipated, everyone found that Yi Qianqian, who should have been killed, was actually standing on the side, unharmed. And beside her, Yi Shiwen was holding her hand and had just stabilized himself. Are you stupid? Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Qianqian and said. He was slightly moved, and a different kind of feeling grew in his heart. Seeing Yi Qianqian risking her life for him, how could he not feel something in his heart? He could not help but blame himself for being too greedy. If he did not want to copy the fighting character, he would not have ended up like this. Fortunately, he completed the copying of the fighting character at the last moment and escaped from that state, so he could directly rescue Yi Qianqian at that critical moment. If he had been late for even a second, the whole consequences would have been unimaginable. At this time, in front of the mysterious space in Yi Shiwen's mind, in addition to the martial character, there was also a huge fighting character blooming with colorful light, echoing with the martial character. Especially the two fighting characters, which were juxtaposed together, were flashing with a mysterious halo. These two ancient characters not only had supreme comprehension value, but most importantly, if these two ancient characters could be refined, they could even be used to suppress and kill the enemy with infinite power. Yi Qianqian just smiled. There was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, and a pair of bright and beautiful eyes just looked at Yi Shiwen. If it were him, he would also do the same, just like when Yi Shiwen fought Teng Yang. Knowing that he was not a match, didn't he still hold him back? Damn it! Wang Tianhua saw that both Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian were fine, and suddenly became furious. He, a celestial being realm master, actually failed to kill Yi Shiwen, which was simply a great shame. Wang Tianhua, do you still want to touch the people of Yi clan under our eyes? At this time, several celestial being realm masters of Yi clan had already arrived, blocking in front of Wang Tianhua. Wang Tianhua's eyes were a bit cold. He did not expect that in that situation, Yi Shiwen would still be able to escape. However, there was no other way at this time. The experts of Yi clan had already arrived. Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian were already 100% safe. You two did well. Haha, pissed them off? At that moment, a sky human realm expert from the Yi family laughed loudly and said, He ignored the ugly expressions on the faces of the surrounding experts who had been plotting for Yi Shiwen's divine objects. Since when did these experts from the Yi family care about these people? Only Wang Tiansuo was still valued by them, but now the Wang family didn't have any powerful experts. Would they dare to have a big conflict with the Yi family at this time? Just wait for the entire army to be annihilated. On the other side, Yi Qiong had completely suppressed the three of them. Tung Tian and the other two roared, but they could not turn the situation around. They could only watch as Yi Qiong suppressed them. For the three of them, being suppressed by Yi Qiong was tantamount to a great humiliation. Originally, they were on guard against each other, but at this time, they could not care so much anymore. They quickly cooperated with each other. At their level, they were naturally not unfamiliar with joint attack techniques. The three of them joined forces and slightly turned the situation around. However, overall, the balance of victory was still getting closer and closer to Yi Qiong. As Yi Qiong waved his hands, the entire sky was torn apart. Countless airwaves swept up, collapsing the vacuum. Every attack seemed to be able to shatter the sky. It was very terrifying. Yi Qiong, who was fighting against three people alone, moved so fast that it was almost invisible. His figure was tall and sturdy like a real god. However, even so, no one dared to underestimate the three people who were being suppressed. The strength of these three people was undoubtedly top-notch, but it also depended on who they were compared to. Compared to Yi Qiong, they did not have an advantage, but compared to them, they could still be easily slaughtered like weeds. Everyone could only stay far away from the battlefield of these four people, because if they were too close, there was a chance that they would be shocked to death alive. Yi Shiwen also pulled Yi Qianqian to the side. With one hand on her back, he channeled qi into her. Accompanied by a long cry of phoenix, her injuries quickly recovered. The internal injuries that were originally caused by Wang Tiansuo were also rapidly recovering. Yi Qianqian did not resist. She was not unfamiliar with Yi Shiwen's phoenix regeneration technique. When they were still in the blood world, Yi Shiwen had used this technique to heal her injuries. In less than a dozen breaths, Yi Qianqian's internal injuries had mostly healed. Are you stupid? If I didn't pull you out at the last moment, you would have been killed. Yi Shiwen could not help but complain. Didn't you also try to stall Tingyang for me? Yi Qianqian's bright eyes looked at Yi Shiwen. There was a hint of a smile in the corner of her eyes. There was a bit of naughtiness, completely different from her usual cold image. You two, we're going to retreat first. Do you want to go with us? Just when Yi Shiwen wanted to say a few more words, an expert of Yi clan secretly transmitted his voice into the minds of both of them. Now that the treasury has spat out the last ancient characters, I'm afraid that it won't be long before it closes. If we don't leave now, then it's possible that we will be locked inside forever. Yi Shiwen heard this and looked at the masters of the major forces around him. Even the individual cultivators were already preparing to leave. In the entire world of the treasure house, they were already the last batch of people to leave. As for Yi Qiong and the others, their strength was the best among these people. Naturally, there was no need to worry about this problem. The two looked at each other and immediately made up their minds to follow. Whoosh! 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 In the sky, a stream of light cut through the vast sky and directly rushed towards the exit. For ordinary people, this world was already so big that there was no end to it. However, for these masters who were going all out to escape, it was not that far. In just one day and one night, everyone was already close to the entrance of the entire world of the treasure house. The entire treasure house had already begun to shake violently. The space channel in front of everyone was also shrinking bit by bit. Soon it would completely close. Everyone began to feel a little anxious. Some people looked behind them, not knowing when the four people would catch up. Especially the people of the Yi clan, they were a little anxious. The treasure house was about to close, but there was still no news of Yi Qiong. Although the ancient word was very precious, it was not worth it to lose a genius of the 5 hegemons level. However, just as everyone was about to rush out of the world of the treasure house and enter the space channel, suddenly, a figure directly rushed over. Ah! Yi Qiong let out a hearty laugh as he rushed over from afar, chasing after the stars and the moon. Seeing him, everyone of the Yi clan finally heaved a sigh of relief, including Yi Shiwen. Although he did not have any friendship with Yi Qiong, no matter what, when Tung Tontian wanted to attack him, it was also Yi Qiong who spoke up to help. Yi Shiwen secretly remembered this favor. Behind Yi Qiong, Tung Tontian, Bing Wuji, and Hao Lianjuan were a little embarrassed, like roosters who had lost a fight. Obviously, the fight for the ancient word had come to an end. Who won and who lost was already very obvious. Although Yi Tianxiong and the others were the last to arrive, their speed was obviously much faster than everyone else. In just a short while, they had already rushed out of the world of the treasure house and rushed into the space channel. Yi Qiong, today's matter, I will definitely repay you in the future. At this time, from the space channel came Tung Tongtian's unwilling voice. Then come. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Yi Qiong's voice came from the space channel with a bit of a smile. Obviously, he did not really care about them. 3 against 1. They could not do anything to him. And in the end, they let him obtain the fighting word. What else could they say? After a short while, Yi Shiwen and the others also arrived at the space channel. Boom! The entire world of the treasure house rumbled, and the space door that seemed to have split open completely closed. In the space channel, everyone also went their separate ways, going in different directions. Soon, only the Yi clan was left. The Yi clan's faces were full of joy. This trip to the treasure house. As one of the initiators, the Yi clan had gained a lot, especially in the last fight for the divine object in the treasure house. Everyone in the Yi clan had gained a lot. Although it was not as much as Yi Shiwen, it was not less than Yi Qianqian, and this was the result of their collective distribution. Not to mention that Yi Qiong had obtained the fighting word in the end. This time, it could be said to be a great harvest. This time, Qiong was able to obtain the fighting word because of everyone's help. Thank you very much. At this time, Yi Qiong cupped his hands and said. There was not the slightest trace of arrogance on his face. This was completely different from the arrogant look of those top experts that Yi Shiwen had seen. Everyone hurriedly replied humbly. They had only played a role in restraining those people from the side. The one who had truly won the battle was Yi Qiong, who had fought 1 against 3 and completely defeated all 3 of them. In the end, he had been able to snatch the fighting character. As for Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian, they did not help much. Everyone looked at Yi Qiong with some envy. No matter what, in the end, he had obtained the fighting word. If he could comprehend a thing or two, his cultivation would soar. He was originally one of the 5 tyrants, and now that he had obtained the fighting word, it was like a tiger that had grown wings. Maybe he could stand out from the 5 tyrants. Everyone did not stay here for long, because this space channel was originally a relatively stable channel opened by the treasure house key. Now that the treasure house was closed, this place would become more and more tyrannical, 10 times or even 100 times more violent than before. With the last of the Yi clan's people leaving, this trip to the treasure house finally came to an end. Chapter 13:26. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Everyone from the Yi clan who had entered the treasure house 3 years ago returned one after another. It was especially rumored that Yi Qiong had obtained great benefits from the treasure house. As soon as he returned, he immediately entered a state of closed-door training. Soon, the rumor that Yi Qiong had obtained an ancient word also spread. This matter itself was not a secret, not to mention that so many people had seen it. As for the secret contained in this ancient word, no one knew. Even Yi Qiong did not know before he refined it. However, there was someone who also knew this secret, and that was Yi Shiwen. He had already imprinted the word Do into his mind, even though he had used up all of his spirit crystals just to copy the word Do. This word Do was indeed related to the word Wu. The 2 words reflected each other in Yi Shiwen's mind. Subsequently, the news of Yi Qiong fighting against 3 people by himself and completely suppressing Tung Tontian and the other 2 were also exposed. For a time, the morale of the Yi clan soared. The name of Nan Batian was once again discussed enthusiastically. Among these rumors, some of the rumors about Yi Shiwen were also submerged in many others. Because compared to Yi Qiong's dazzling brilliance, Yi Shiwen was nothing at all. When Yi Shiwen returned to the Yi clan, Yi Junhai and the others had already returned to Luya City. They originally came to participate in the centennial ancestral worship ceremony, so they would not stay here permanently. However, Yi Shiwen still chose to stay at the contact point of the main branch in Luya City, in the courtyard. This time, Yi Shiwen had a great harvest from the treasure house, even more than Yi Qiong. However, he did not have time to rest. As soon as he returned to the small courtyard, he received a message from the law enforcement hall that Yi Jintian wanted to see him. Yi Shiwen did not know why, but since this was the case, he would go. Yi Shiwen rushed to the law enforcement city. There was no difference from 3 years ago. However, Yi Shiwen's mentality had undergone a huge change. Back then, Yi Shiwen was just a kid at the 3rd or 4th level of Law Phase Realm. Now he could already kill a half-step Celestial Realm expert. Do not underestimate half-step Sky Human Stage experts. True Sky Human Stage experts would rarely personally take action. Most of them would spend their time in cultivation retreat. Thus, the ones truly in charge of the various organizations were half-step Sky Human Stage experts. They could be considered as the backbone and pillars of the organization. This time, Yi Shiwen didn't see Yi Shui. He heard that Yi Shui was still in closed-door training. It seemed that all the geniuses were either in closed-door training or preparing to do closed-door training. Everything was in preparation for the upcoming Imperial Court struggle. It would be a grand meeting of all the geniuses of the human race. If one could make a name for himself there, his name would spread throughout the entire human domain, perhaps even throughout the primordial era. Yi Shiwen quickly entered the law enforcement hall and saw Yi Jintian. Yi Shiwen greets Hall Master. Yi Shiwen saluted and said, "I heard about your performance in the treasure house." "Good, very good." Yi Jintian flipped through a scroll of information on the table. Yi Shiwen glanced at it casually and found that it was all about him. Many of them were about his actions in the treasure house. Yi Shiwen was slightly shocked. He had underestimated the law enforcement hall's intelligence agency. Fortunately, Yi Jintian did not have any malicious intent. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. "You are indeed from our law enforcement hall," Yi Jintian said. "Did you kill Yi Xing?" Yi Jintian asked the most important question. Although Yi Shiwen did not hesitate to kill Yi Xing, there was no doubt that the death of a genius like Yi Xing would definitely attract the attention of many higher-ups. Not to mention, he still had a higher-up father, Yi Qian. Yi Shiwen nodded without hesitation and said, "Yes, because he plotted against me at that time, I could only fight back in self-defense." Yi Jintian saw that Yi Shiwen did not hesitate, and his eyes flashed with a bit of admiration. If Yi Shiwen had concealed the truth just now, it would have caused him to be unhappy, and he would have looked down on Yi Shiwen. Although self-defense was necessary, it also depended on the situation. If even he could not believe it, then Yi Shiwen's scheming was too deep. Such a person was a disaster, not a blessing. In that case, I killed him. He actually dared to plot against you. Yi Jintian was not surprised by Yi Xing's death. He actually plotted against Yi Shiwen. If this was not courting death, then what was? But you should know that although I will not pursue this matter, I am afraid that old bastard Yi Qian will not let this go. He cultivated Yi Xing for hundreds of years and finally pulled him out. Just when he was about to become famous in the Yi family, he was killed by you. I am afraid that he is going to riot now. Yi Shiwen's face showed a bit of a bitter smile, but then he said, "Then let him come." "Good, well said. How can the people of our law enforcement hall be afraid of that old bastard?" Yi Jintian laughed and said, "However, that old bastard has always been unruly. If he disregards his status and secretly attacks you, then it will be terrible." Thinking of this, Yi Jintian pondered for a moment and said, "Yi Shiwen, are you willing to worship me as your master?" Yi Shiwen was shocked. Worshipping Yi Jintian as a master was a completely different concept from before. In this world, a master for a day was a father for a lifetime. Similarly, once he was accepted as a disciple by Yi Jintian, then his status in the law enforcement hall would also rise. It was a big deal, just like Yi Shukong becoming the master of the family. When Yi Shiwen was in the true martial school, he became the disciple of the Tibetan Star Sun. Later on, the Tibetan Star Sun helped him many times. For Yi Shiwen, the Tibetan Star Sun did not hesitate to fall out with the other big shots. The meaning of this was naturally different. However, Yi Shiwen did not hesitate for long. He immediately kowtowed and said, "Disciple greets master." In this world, there was no such thing as worshipping only one master for life. As the saying goes, those who reach first. Even if the Tibetan Star Sun was here, he would also agree to worship Yi Jintian as a master. Good, good, good. Yi Jintian laughed heartily and said. He looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes full of love and affection. Previously, Yi Shiwen was just a subordinate of his law enforcement hall, but now he was his disciple. Naturally, things were different. In this world, there was a saying that a teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. Similarly, disciples were almost equivalent to children. Especially in this world, many warriors were too powerful, so they didn't marry in their entire life. Or they didn't marry at all. Disciples were equivalent to their descendants. Now, you are my disciple. If anyone dares to touch you, I will help you block those old guys. If they dare to touch you, I will fight my way to their door and turn them upside down. Yi Jintian said heroically. This heroism also infected Yi Shiwen. With such a master protecting him, many things would be much easier to handle. However, you have to deal with those boys of the younger generation by yourself. These are also part of your training. If you can't even deal with these people, then you will disappoint me too much. Yi Jintian said, That's natural. Master has already helped me block those older generation experts. If I can't even deal with these remaining people, then I will have no face to see anyone. Yi Shiwen said in a powerful voice. Good, well said. However, your cultivation time is still too short. You may be considered top-notch when compared to Yi Shui and the others. However, you are still lacking when compared to those 5 boys of the 5 tyrants. Yi Jintian was the law enforcement hall's hallmaster. His vision was naturally very high. Ordinary people simply couldn't enter his eyes. Only the top existences like the 5 tyrants could make him pay attention to them. He was not muddle-headed. Yi Shiwen's cultivation time was still too short. In the future, he might soar to the sky. Perhaps he might even be able to defeat the God's Child. However, at present, he was still a young eagle and needed to be protected. In the future, he would soar to the sky. Yi Shiwen was not surprised because his goal was also to reach the level of the 5 tyrants. Since you are already my disciple, then I will personally guide you in your cultivation from now on. Yi Jintian said, I have also seen your information. Since you have returned to the Yi family, your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. This is admittedly very powerful, but at the same time, it has left behind many hidden dangers. Yi Shiwen was about to say that it was impossible, but he saw Yi Jintian say, I know what you want to say. Your foundation is very solid. It is indeed the best I have seen in my life. However, you must understand that the path of martial arts cultivation is absolutely not limited to the practice of martial arts. Let me ask you, what is the essence of martial arts? The essence of martial arts is to go against the heaven's will and change one's fate. Yi Shiwen said. Yi Shiwen blurted out almost without any hesitation. For many people, they absolutely wouldn't say such words. However, Yi Shiwen was different. He had been accompanied by Yi Mo since a long time ago. Therefore, his vision was far higher than that of an ordinary warrior. From the very beginning, he stood at a very high starting point to look at martial arts cultivation, and the effect was naturally extraordinary. That's right, the essence of martial arts is not to be brave and ruthless. That's right, the essence of martial arts is not to be brave and ruthless, nor is it some kind of fighting technique created by the ancient ancestors for the sake of survival. In essence, it is to defy the heaven and change one's fate. Our human race is famous for its short lifespan. If we don't practice, then even if we live in a place full of Lingqi, we can only live for a short 100 years. In the end, people are afraid of death, and in order to live longer, they have created all kinds of cultivation methods. Defying the heaven is the essence of cultivation. As for the various martial techniques and moves, they are just derived from this process. Although it can't be said that they are completely irrelevant, but compared to the true essence, they are still insignificant. The true essence is to comprehend the heaven's way, so that one day, one can defy the heaven and change one's fate, change everything, and thus achieve the goal of eternal life. Yi Jintian explained to Yi Shiwen. Chapter 13:27. Yi Shiwen nodded. Only those who were not strong enough thought that martial arts cultivation was for the sake of fighting fiercely. In fact, everything was just for the sake of immortality. This was a fascinating term. All the masters and almighties had practiced their entire lives just to touch the edge of this word. This was the root of martial arts cultivation. Since you understand this point, then you should understand that comprehending the heavenly way is the core of all cultivation, especially at your level. You should also be able to feel the existence of the heavenly way. For us, the heavenly way is like a huge cage, enveloping us in it. We practice our entire lives in order to not be bound by this cage. Yi Jintian said. Yi Shiwen nodded. He also had a deep understanding of this. For ordinary people, the heavenly way was something that couldn't be seen or touched. However, the higher the level of cultivation, the more they could feel the existence of the heavenly way. This was not an illusory existence, but a real existence. Just like the programs in the computer of his previous life, the entire heavenly way was like a supercomputer composed of countless programs. No matter how a warrior practiced, it must be within the scope of this supercomputer, including the practice itself. Although it was known to defy the heaven and change one's fate. But in fact, if the rules of the heavenly way did not allow it, it was simply impossible for a warrior to practice. This heavenly ways program stipulated everything in the world, including the lifespan of a human. As long as one reached a certain level, they would naturally die of old age. There was a mysterious force controlling all of this. And the so-called immortality was like when one understood these operating rules and wrote another set of program code and modified the entire program so that a person could avoid the fate of being erased after the end of his lifespan. In other words, from a small code in the entire program, a gorgeous transformation into a programmer who could change the code, and a programmer who could manipulate the program. This was a huge gap that needed to be crossed. Just from looking at the paper, one could see how difficult it was in the end. It was just like how people on Earth. How could they imagine that one day a code would become a programmer? And to comprehend the heavenly way, the most important thing is to be knowledgeable and be able to comprehend by analogy. The more knowledgeable you are, the easier it will be for you to practice. Do you understand? Yi Jintian looked at Yi Shiwen and said. Yi Shiwen nodded. Just like if one wanted to really modify the program to achieve the goal of defying the heaven and changing one's fate, one must at least truly understand how this program works in order to find the loopholes and patch it to make oneself immortal. And now, you are at the stage where you lack the accumulation of such knowledge. Your progress is too fast. Although I don't know how your previous cultivation was, from the time you returned to the Yi clan, you have progressed to this level in less than 10 years. I can more or less see that your bone age is at most 200 years old. You could be considered very young. Yi Jintian said, the current you doesn't need to continue to advance bravely. If it's just the accumulation of energy, this is too easy for our Yi clan. You don't have to worry about this. However, you currently lack the accumulation of this knowledge. You might not feel it now, but when you cultivate to the late stage of the half-step heaven realm, you might be stuck at this step for hundreds of years or even hundreds of years. The heaven realm represents a whole new realm, representing the unity of heaven and man. Your current situation is far from enough. Like Yi Qianqian, Yi Shui, and the others, they have been receiving this knowledge for many years in order to increase their realm in order to match their own cultivation. This complements each other, which is why their cultivation is progressing at lightning speed. With the Yi clan's financial and material resources, as long as their comprehension increases, the increase of strength is just a matter of piling up resources. This is the simplest thing to do. Yi Jintian said. What you need now isn't to continue advancing bravely. If it's just the accumulation of energy, it would be too easy for our Yi clan. Our Yi clan has been established in the ancient Barrens continent for countless years. What we lack the least is this kind of resources, especially for geniuses like you. Our Yi clan is the target of nurturing with all our resources. Only then did Yi Shiwen come to a realization. No wonder those geniuses' cultivation was faster than the other. The so-called accumulation wasn't the accumulation of strength, and it was different from Yi Shiwen's method of obtaining spirit crystals. The Yi clan would provide all of these for them. Their true accumulation was all kinds of knowledge and comprehension. As long as their comprehension increased, their personal realms would increase, and their strength could be quickly accumulated. All of these were nothing. What those geniuses didn't lack was comprehension ability. Each of them had outstanding aptitudes, just like monstrous geniuses. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called heavenly prodigies. Of course, not everyone could enjoy this. Usually, in a generation, there were less than 10 people who could enjoy it. Just like Yi Shiwen, Yi Shui, and Yi Feng's generation, only a few people could enjoy it. Most people still needed to use all kinds of hard work to exchange for cultivation resources. This was very unfair. However, the world itself was unfair. It had been like this since people were born. However, these geniuses also needed to shoulder more responsibilities. Once something happened, they would need to charge and break through the enemy lines at the front line. This was also fair to a certain extent. However, the responsibilities they had to bear were different. So, it seems that the hidden dangers of your cultivation are not big. However, the hidden dangers are actually very big. The higher your cultivation level is, the bigger the hidden dangers will be. Your knowledge is too lacking. Other people have learned knowledge for hundreds of years, but you have to learn from the beginning. There are too many things you need to learn. So, in the next few years, I want you to honestly accept this knowledge. As for the promotion of cultivation, you don't have to worry about it. As long as you have enough resources, you can even break into the celestial being realm in a short time. As long as your mental cultivation can keep up with the speed of the growth of your strength. Yi Jintian said. Yi Shiwen thought that this was indeed the case. He couldn't help but feel some lingering fear in his heart. If Yi Jintian hadn't reminded him and continued to practice like this, then the sequelae would have been much bigger. It was true that he had the enlightening mind, ancient tree, and the mysterious space. Even if he continued to practice like this, he wouldn't have to be afraid of chi deviation. However, sooner or later, he would have to walk into a dead end. At that time, he would have to learn from the beginning again. I will sincerely follow Master's instructions. Yi Shiwen said. Well, there are still a few years before the imperial court struggle. You should know about this. Yi Jintian said. Yes. Yi Shiwen nodded. He also wanted to amaze the world in the imperial court struggle. However, our law enforcement hall is somewhat slow in this regard. So, we are at a disadvantage. None of the 5 tyrants are from our law enforcement hall. Although there are a few outstanding geniuses, but they are weaker than the 5 tyrants. But you are the one who is favored by the higher-ups of our law enforcement hall. You have the potential to contend against the 5 tyrants in the future. Yi Jintian said, in your generation, although Yi Shui and the others are not bad, but in the future, it will be very difficult for them to contend against the 5 tyrants. Only you and Yi Su Kong have enough potential. In the future, you may become one of the 2 tyrants of the younger generation. The imperial court struggle is an excellent opportunity to test your potential. In this imperial court struggle, I am afraid that it will be very difficult for you to contend against the 5 tyrants. But there is still a long way to go. Don't worry. I will let you enter a secret territory of our law enforcement hall to practice. Later, I will also frequently come here to give you pointers in your practice. You will have a good foundation, and when that time comes, you will directly rush into the celestial realm. Your future will be truly limitless. Yi Jintian said in a sincere and heartfelt manner. Yi Jintian did things in a hurry and did not hesitate at all. When he said that he would let Yi Shiwen go to the secret territory, he immediately let Yi Shiwen go. He did not delay even for a second. Soon, an old man came in from outside. This old man had 1 foot in the grave. and it seemed as if a gust of wind could blow him away. At the most critical moment, Yi Shiwen felt a strong death chi from his body. The angel's 5 decrepitude had already descended on his body, and his whole body was aging. Not everyone who looked like an old man was really old. For the truly tyrannical warriors, their appearance could be changed at will. No one really cared about the changes in their appearance. After all, it was just a stinky skin bag, and if one cared about it, it would be a waste of time. This kind of feeling of the angel's 5 decrepitude, Yi Shiwen had also felt from the old head of a Yuan school. It was a kind of real despair and near-death situation. At that time, this kind of state had given Yi Shiwen a great shock. It forced him to cultivate hard every minute and every second, so that he would not become like this one day in the future. But even so, Yi Shiwen still felt a trace of the celestial realm master's aura from his body. This kind of complete integration with heaven and earth, the realm of celestial being as one, was extremely profound. If one closed his eyes and used his divine sense to feel, this old man's body was simply like a raging storm. "This is?" Yi Shiwen asked. "You can call him Old Yi. This senior is an extremely senior in my law enforcement hall. In the future, he will be responsible for guiding your cultivation for the next few years. You must respect him, just like how you respect me. Do you understand?" Yi Jintian said. Yi Shiwen was slightly shocked in his heart. Letting an extremely strong master in celestial being responsible for guiding his cultivation, Yi Clan really had an incomparably deep foundation. Although this old man was already in the angel's 5 decrepitude, and his strength might be greatly reduced compared to his peak, but he estimated that he had lived for thousands of years. It could definitely be said that he was a living fossil, an antique type of person. Their martial arts knowledge was extremely profound. Such a person, if placed in any force, would be an elder-like existence. These people could use their own rich experience to help the younger generation avoid many detours. Such a person, in the Yi clan, was absolutely a person of virtue and prestige. Now, actually personally came out to guide his cultivation. In addition to the Yi clan's deep foundation, it was enough to see that this time, the law enforcement hall's higher-ups were also extremely optimistic about him and were putting in a lot of effort to cultivate him. Chapter 1328. Such an old man, with his rich experience and knowledge, was a treasure trove that could never be dug out. As the saying goes, an old man who doesn't die is called a demon. Although this saying was somewhat unpleasant to hear, but it explained some truth. Such a person was a treasure for the Yi family. Strength was not the key. In the Yi family, tyrannical masters could be found everywhere, but not everyone could have this kind of experience. Old Yi. Yi Shiwen quickly saluted respectfully. Whether it was strength, qualifications, experience, or age, the other party was worthy of Yi Shiwen's salute. Although Yi Shiwen had never heard of this person's name, such a person was a generation of people who dominated the world countless years ago. Now, how many people would still remember him? As the saying goes, the new generation replaces the old. Hall Master is too polite. Old Yi just said lightly, "This old man is just a candle in the wind and candle in the wind. It is nothing. I am just a person waiting to die. Now, it is already an honor to be able to contribute to the Yi family." Old Yi was calm. He had already seen through life and death. Even if the topic of death was mentioned, ordinary people would change their expressions. But he was still calm. This was enough to show that his inner strength was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. "Old Yi, you're too polite. Didn't you look after me too?" It was rare for Yi Jintian to have such a gentle side to him. Usually, his image was that of a cold-blooded person. It could be seen that Old Ye's position in Yi Jintian's heart was indeed extraordinary. Yi Shiwen also did not dare to neglect. "Yi Shiwen, in the future, Old Yi will be responsible for your cultivation. If you have any questions, you can ask him." Old Yi was one of the few masters of our Yi family. Yi Jintian looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Understood." Yi Shiwen replied, "Well, next, Old Yi will bring you into the secret territory. For the next period of time, you will have to cultivate in it." Yi Jintian said, "Soon, Yi Shiwen bid farewell to Yi Jintian and followed old Yi to the secret territory to cultivate. "You're only 200 years old, right?" Old Yi asked. The two stepped on the light and went all the way to the depths of the Yi family. Yi Shiwen did not ask where they were going. He just silently remembered the way and followed behind old Yi. "Yes." Yi Shiwen nodded and said, "To be able to cultivate to such a level at the age of 200, if it were an outsider, I'm afraid they would think that you are a true genius. It seems that you can be mentioned in the same breath as the Son of God." Old man Yi said calmly, as if there was a deeper meaning in his words. Yi Shiwen was startled for a moment. He didn't know why old Yi had said so. "But you have many internal injuries on your body. Although your cultivation method is very profound, it has actually damaged your foundation. Although this is normal for a warrior who has fought for his entire life, but you have so many internal injuries at your age. I'm afraid that you have experienced many life and death battles. And how many times have you escaped from death to be like this?" Old man Ye's words revealed the mystery. This suddenly made Yi Shiwen incomparably shocked. He didn't expect that old Yi would see through his actual situation at a glance. In the past, everyone would often marvel at his genius after knowing his age and realm. However, only old Yi could see through it at a glance. It was unknown how many life and death battles he had experienced. This was the fundamental reason why he had been able to make breakthroughs. Only in the midst of life and death was the best time to comprehend. However, many people weren't as lucky as Yi Shiwen. Most of the time, they would die tragically on the spot before they could comprehend. Just based on this, it was enough to make Yi Shiwen look at old Yi in a new light. Old Yi was worthy of being one of the top experts of the Yi family. His words were extraordinary. It is precisely because of this that I agreed with the Hall Master to train you with all his strength. Having a high innate talent doesn't mean anything. There are countless experts in the Yi family, and talented people are endless. However, those who can reach the peak in the end may not necessarily be the outstanding ones when they were young. A lifetime is still very long. Perseverance and perseverance are the only way to reach the peak. Old Yi said, "And you have such perseverance and perseverance. Most importantly, you have luck. Luck. Perhaps you don't accept it. In your opinion, you have earned everything by relying on your own hands. You have started from scratch with your bare hands. However, from these internal injuries on your body, it can be seen that you have experienced many life and death battles. If you had made one mistake, you might have died tragically on the spot. Can you still say that you have bad luck?" Old Yi squinted his eyes and smiled. It seemed as if he was looking at a naughty and rebellious child. Yi Shiwen remained silent. In the beginning, he might have been very unwilling to accept the idea of luck. Although he didn't deny the existence of luck, he didn't believe in luck. He only believed in his own hands. Man can conquer nature. However, after listening to old Ye's words, he carefully thought about it. If his luck was really bad, then he might have died a long time ago. Perhaps he wasn't like the rumor that he could casually go out and stumble and pick up a heavenly level divine tool. Or he could casually sit on the ground and pick up a martial arts secret manual. However, he had experienced so many battles, and every time he narrowly won or escaped with his life. Wasn't that enough to prove that his luck was good enough? Are you very depressed? In fact, you don't have to be like this. Haven't you heard of this saying? Luck is also a part of strength. Although this saying is very vague, it is indeed true. If your luck is bad and you are a person plagued with bad luck, then even if you are talented, we will never consider cultivating you, because you may die a violent death in the next second. Old Yi said indifferently, "Thank you for your teachings." After listening to these words, Yi Shiwen suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment. It was as if he had suddenly been enlightened. His state of mind suddenly became clear. He was too obsessed with this point. Whether it was luck or strength, it was all a part of him. If he was too obsessed with denying the existence of luck, then wasn't he also denying himself? It was like Yi Shukong didn't believe in anything. He only believed in himself. However, Yi Shiwen was different. All kinds of martial arts, all kinds of divine tools were the foundation of his victory. Everything was fake. Only his heart was the only one. As long as he understood in his heart, then using divine tools was nothing. Now, the saying of luck was the same. He was too biased before. This made Yi Shiwen faintly excited. Just a few words of advice had benefited him a lot. This old Ye's realm was really very high. If he followed him to cultivate, he should be able to gain a lot. This was completely different from his way of getting along with Yimo. Yimo also knew a lot. Moreover, he was an old monster who had lived for God knows how many years. However, his main focus was still the devil race's power technique. In the case that Yi Shiwen didn't want to become the successor of the Devil King, it was impossible to use the whole set of methods to cultivate the successor of the Devil King on Yi Shiwen. A lot of advice could only be given when they encountered each other. However, Old Ye's advice was more of a systematic imparting of all kinds of knowledge to Yi Shiwen. The two were completely different. However, it didn't mean that Yi Mo was not important. On the contrary, he was very important. He gave Yi Shiwen a different starting point. You can understand this. Very good. Old Yi looked at Yi Shiwen with appreciation. He was very satisfied to see that Yi Shiwen didn't persist in this matter. One must know that each of these geniuses was an extremely talented existence. However, at the same time, they were also unruly. Each of them had a stubborn temper that couldn't be pulled back. It was very difficult to give them advice. In other words, in fact, every top expert was such an unruly existence. Yi Shiwen followed old Yi all the way to the depths of the Yi family. This is a secret territory of our Yi family. It is very old. It has existed for many years. Even I don't know how many years it has been. Countless geniuses of our Yi family have been cultivated in this place. This place also includes the patriarch. Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen heard this and was secretly speechless. Even the patriarch of the Yi family was cultivated in this place. It has been so long that I don't even know its name. We call it Secret Territory Number 1. Old Yi said. Secret Territory Number 1. Yi Shiwen read this name and remembered it in his heart. In the Secret Territory Number 1, there are not only experts of our law enforcement hall. There are also experts of many other organizations. In fact, there are not only experts of our Yi family. There are also many experts of our Yi family who don't share the same surname. Old Yi said, experts of other surnames. Yi Shiwen remembered that the Yi family not only had a huge number of clansmen, but also many experts of other surnames who had the Yi family's bloodline. For example, if the father was a member of the Yi family, then this person's surname would be Yi. Naturally, he would be an authentic expert of the Yi family. However, if the mother was a member of the Yi family, then his father was a member of another family. In this case, although his surname wasn't Yi, but for the Yi family, these people were actually people of the Yi family's bloodline. They were also treated as the Yi family's disciples. In addition, some children who married into the same powerful forces would be loyal to their father's side. Some children who married into weaker forces would be loyal to the Yi family. In addition, the Yi family was also sincerely recruiting these talents. There were various preferential policies that were no worse than the Yi family's disciples. In fact, they could even change their surname to Yi. In any case, half of their bodies contained the Yi family's blood. It was just that their parents were different. So, there was no difference. In addition to these experts of other surnames, there were also many children of clans and forces that had attached themselves to the Yi family for many years. Their clans had attached themselves to the Yi family since a long time ago. They had been tied together with the Yi family for a long time. It was impossible to separate them from each other. If these children were outstanding, they could also receive the Yi family's training. They would be continuously recruited into the Yi family. Then, the Yi family's daughters would marry them and give birth to even more outstanding next generation. In this way, generation after generation, it ensured that the Yi family had a continuous stream of experts. There were countless geniuses in the new generation. Chapter 13:29. Even in times of trouble, these foreign experts were even more loyal and devoted than the Yi family's disciples. Of course, there were always a few scum and scum everywhere, but in comparison, The Yi family's policy was absolutely correct. Therefore, they recruited countless experts to serve the Yi family, giving them the opportunity to be on equal footing with the Yi family's experts. Even those families and forces attached to the Yi family, although they were not from the Yi family, the result of intermarriage with the Yi family for many years was that they more or less had the blood of the Yi family in their bodies. The Yi family, together with these peripheral forces, formed a very huge interest chain and group. Although Yi Shiwen had not been here for long, he still knew about it. Those who can enter the number 1 secret realm are all geniuses. For example, the current 5 tyrants of the younger generation occupy the 5 best secret realms in the number 1 secret realm all year round, said Old Yi. Except for them, everyone's secret realm is not fixed, because the secret realm you are in may be snatched away at any time. This is allowed in the number 1 secret realm. In the number 1 secret realm, strength is the strongest, said Old Yi, looking at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. This was much crueler than he had imagined. It turned out that the secret territory was not fixed. One had to compete for whatever kind of secret territory one desired. The stronger one's strength was, the better the secret territory one would be able to seize. This way, one's cultivation would also be faster. At the same time, there would certainly be many people coveting your secret territory, which would force you to cultivate desperately to avoid being overtaken by others. If you were overtaken by others, then your secret territory would belong to someone else. At that time, even if you had thousands of reasons, it would be useless. It is because you don't have enough strength. As Old Yi said, it is a world where strength is respected. Old Yi won't take action at that time, right? Said Yi Shiwen, looking at Old Yi. No, I won't take action. Everything depends on you. I am only responsible for guiding your cultivation, said Old Yi. Yi Shiwen nodded. Sure enough, in the Yi family, competition is everywhere. It is more intense than what he originally thought. It was the same even in the arcane realm. This was completely different from when he was in the law enforcement heavenly prison. Although the law enforcement heavenly prison was dangerous everywhere, it was a completely different feeling from competition. But don't worry, you have a year's time. You are considered a newcomer, so within this year, they won't be able to find trouble with you. However, after a year, a large number of people will come to find trouble with you. Old Yi smiled faintly. Because you're in the best spot in the human character's secret realm. Human secret territory? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes, in the number 1 secret realm. Although there are many secret realms, in general, they are divided into 3 types: heaven, earth, and human. Among them, the human character's secret realm is occupied by many masters below the celestial realm. In the earth character's secret realm, it is the realm occupied by the real celestial realm masters. And in the heaven character's secret realm, it is the secret realm occupied by the extremely strong among the celestial realm masters. Currently, among the younger generation of the Yi family, only the 5 hegemons occupy the last 5 secret realms in the heaven character's secret realm. As for the others, no matter how tyrannical they are, they can only move freely in the earth character's secret realm, said Old Yi. With just a few words, Old Yi completely outlined the intense competition in the number 1 secret realm. From high to low, according to the distribution of strength, even the 5 hegemons, who dominated the younger generation, could only be ranked at the bottom in the heaven character's secret realm. One could imagine how many masters there were in the heaven character's secret realm. But even so, the secret realms occupied by the 5 hegemons were second to none among the masters of the Yi family. And what was even worse was his location. In the human character's secret realm, there were top masters below the celestial realm. He, a kid at the 8th level of the transcendence realm, could actually occupy the best spot. One could imagine how many people were indignant. If this was just a secret realm distributed by the higher-ups, it would be fine. But this was a secret realm that could be snatched. This gave many ambitious people an excellent opportunity. As long as they defeated Yi Shiwen, they could snatch the secret realm. In all fairness, if it were Yi Shiwen, he would not let go of such a good opportunity, let alone these people. Now, He finally understood what Old Man Yi meant when he said that a large number of people would come to find trouble with him. Yi Jintian was basically putting him on a barbecue rack, letting countless people stare at the arcane realm under his butt. At any time, it could be overturned by someone. At that time, he might be homeless, and it was possible that he would lose all his face. What? Are you afraid? Old Yi said lightly. No, even so, I will go all out. Those who want to snatch my secret realm, let them come, Yi Shiwen said sonorously. There was a hint of a smile in Old Ye's eyes, and there was also a bit of admiration. Such a young man was rare. He was neither servile nor overbearing, but most importantly, he was not arrogant either. Maintaining a calm state of mind was the most important. All right, then come with me. You still have a lot of things to do in this 1 year's time. There are too many hidden dangers in your body. For your age, it's already shocking enough. If you continue to accumulate like this, you may not live past 1,000 years old. Old Yi said, all right, then come with me. You still have a lot of things to do in this 1 year. Yi Xuan nodded. He also understood that Old Yi was right. If he continued to use the Phoenix regeneration technique and consumed his lifespan to repair the injuries on his body, he might not live more than 1,000 years and would die tragically. Although he still had thousands of years of lifespan, he really could not afford to waste it like a prodigal. It was not that he did not know in the past, but he had no choice. Those treasures that could restore lifespan, each of them was sky high. Although his wealth was extremely fast, it was also extremely fast to use it. It was difficult to really accumulate. Therefore, he had the idea of going to the Devil Domain to inherit the wealth of the Devil King. Only in this way, he could eliminate the hidden dangers in his body in one fell swoop. If you are in a small force, you can only fend for yourself. They simply cannot have enough treasures to repair the hidden injuries in your body. However, in our Yi family, we have enough such resources. Of course, these are only conventional resources. If it involves some precious treasures, you still have to use points to exchange for them. As long as you complete the corresponding tasks, these things are not difficult to obtain. Old Yi said, generally, people work hard to complete tasks to earn points in order to exchange for cultivation resources. But you are not the same. Old Man Yi said, most people work hard to complete missions to earn points in exchange for cultivation resources, but you guys are different. The Yi family can actually provide the resources you need for free, but first, it will consume too much, and second, it will be a tempering for you guys. In martial arts cultivation, you can't just work behind closed doors. You have to go out and experience everything in the outside world. As the saying goes, reading 10,000 books is not as good as walking 10,000 miles. And in your case, after walking 10,000 miles, you have to read 10,000 books. Yi Shiwen understood in his heart. It turned out to be like this. The Yi family had existed for so many years, and each of its rules and regulations had gone through thousands of tests. It was the most suitable system. Perhaps it was not suitable for taking care of the weak, but it was absolutely suitable for the strong to stand out from among them. I also heard from the Hall Master that you are from an unorthodox background. You have not received formal education. In the next period of time, I will make up for this part of you, Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen nodded again and again, and his face revealed a somewhat happy expression. There were many people in the clan who wanted to listen to Old Ye's teachings, but they did not have the opportunity. Now he had such an opportunity. If not for Yi Jintian's face, how could he have had such an opportunity? At least as far as he knew, it was impossible for Yi Shui to have such a heaven-tier expert giving pointers at her side all the time. Every single one of these heaven-tier experts' time was precious, and how many people had the time to waste on giving pointers to the younger generation? Speaking of which, it was precisely because Old Yi did not have much time left. He knew that it was impossible for him to have a breakthrough before his death, and he could not reach that illusory Tao of eternal life. Therefore, he had come out of the mountain to give Yi Shiwen pointers. Also, there are many treasures in the clan that specialize in treating this kind of internal injury. They can prolong one's lifespan. These things are not within the scope of providing you for free. You must personally exchange for them with your points. With the current amount of clan points that you have, you can exchange for 1 or 2 things. But your internal injury is absolutely not something that can be cured with one or two things. Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen secretly noted these things in his heart. These things would come in handy one day in the future. As the two of them talked, Old Yi explained some things about Secret Realm Number 1 to him. The two of them had already arrived at Secret Realm Number 1. Although this was called Secret Realm Number 1, in fact, according to Old Yi, this Secret Realm Number 1 was actually formed by the combination of countless secret realms. It was the largest and most fundamental secret realm of the Yi clan. It was divided into 3 parts, heaven, earth, and human. And the secret realm that Yi Shiwen obtained was ranked first among the human secret realms. It was the human secret realm number 1 among the human secret realms. Of course, this was the official name. In fact, after a secret realm had a master, it would be given a variety of names according to their preferences. But these were not important. Yi Shiwen understood that the superior environment of this secret realm was only one of the factors. The fierce competition was the root cause of rapid progress in Secret Realm Number 1. Old Yi and Yi Shiwen arrived in front of a huge space gate. After Old Yi had verified the entry token, the space gate slowly opened under the command of the guarding elder. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath. In the future, this place would become his permanent residence for a long time. Even the masters at the level of the 5 hegemons would occupy a secret realm in Secret Realm Number 1 all year round. The two of them stepped on the light and entered Secret Realm Number 1. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.